hey
I
everybody.
can't do the robot. I don't know how to do like the robot dancing, Like I can't do it.
Well,
Uh,
no, I'm not a dancer. I'm not a particularly good dancer. I'm an enthusiastic dancer, but I'm not a very good dancer.
you know what? It's when it comes to dancing, everyone's drunk and it's all about vibes. No one is as good of a dancer as they think they are.
That's true. Welcome everybody to Lorebeards 40,000, and today our topic is going to be about one of the most important deals ever made in Warhammer 40k. As in putting pen to paper and writing out, yes, I agree to do this. It's the deal that we're talking about is the Treaty of Mars.
I'm excited for this one because like I have so many. Okay, all right, hold on. We're going crazy immediately because I think the Emperor tricked them.
Well, there's lots of theories about this, and in fact, part of the reason that the Schism of Mars occurred is because Kelbor Hall thought he was tricked. So we'll have to
Yes.
get into that. We'll have to get into
Uh,
that. It is certainly a deal that was made for a certain reason, and that reason is no longer valid. So we're over here talking about something that's happened a long time ago. It happened prior to the Horus Heresy, and without it, there wouldn't be an Imperium of Man. So it's one of the reasons why it's really important to discuss.
I have always wondered what would have happened if Terra at the time went to war with Mars because Mars wasn't being resupplied by other Forge worlds. They were also cut off.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
I'm
they
going to go
but they had
more.
Titans.
They did have Titans, but it is implied that maybe the Emperor also had Titans because he
Okay.
knew all about them and everything.
He probably did not have Titans. Although what I will do is I will add that to our what if list of what if what if Terra went to war with Mars.
Because I have a sneaking suspicion that one Mars could hold off the Terran army for quite a bit, but
Probably
because
it
they
would have been
were
horrifying.
yeah, because it would have been the worst of the worst. Because this is prior to the bans that we're going to talk about. We're going to get into what the Emperor put as like you can't do anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because the tech priesthood, and we got to get it. Oh, I'm excited for this. But the tech priesthood was like doing mutant like cybernetics, like
They
at
were
the
doing
time.
some wild stuff. So let's get into it because before the Imperium could become the galaxy spanning empire that we know it today, the Emperor faced a problem that no amounts of Space Marines could solve, and that is that Terra needed more than armies. It needed starships and weapons and armor and reactors and ammunition and people who understand how that stuff works and how to make more.
Yep. And luckily on the red planet, not too far away, it turns out that there's a whole civilization that specializes in that. Who would have guessed?
So, believe it or not, prior to the launch of the Great Crusade, the greatest concentration of power in the solar system was on Mars. It was already a separate civilization. It was this ancient techno theocracy that had survived Old Night or the Age of Strife by turning technology into their ritual religion and their maintenance into worship and their knowledge into sacred texts. And the rulers of Mars, the tech priests, they did not just make machines. They commanded titans and cybernetic armies. They guarded fragments of humanity's lost technological past. They had a lot of stuff at their command.
There is so much to get into. First off, we need to explain who the Emperor is to the Mechanicus, because I think we've explained the Emperor enough that people
really
know that
so.
he is a either god or demigod-like creature that is the greatest psyker of all in the history of everything in the forever of Warhammer 40k. He's done incredible feats. He's broken through barriers across the entire galaxy. He's quelled psychic storms. He started psychic storms. There are so many things that the Emperor has done. And when it came to Mars, there was something important that he did when he got there.
So let's talk about who the Emperor is. I mean, you said we could probably skip that, right? I think you didn't. You
we
say
could
that?
skip who the Emperor is as the Imperium knows him, but who is the Emperor as the Mechanicus knows him? Also,
Okay.
who is the Mechanicus?
Right. So that is going to get into a lot of stuff. So the Martian Mechanicum at the time, Mechanicum, to be very clear.
Yeah.
It is not a monolithic corporation. It's not a unified nation state. It is a techno-theocracy. 1,000 cults in a trench coat.
The way to think about the Mechanicus and the Mechanicum is one is pre and one is post nut.
Ouch. So the Martian Mechanicum, they were a civilization where their religious hierarchy and their industrial capacity and their scholarly culture and their military power were all intertwined. Mars was the greatest Forge world, the original Forge world. It was the central fulcrum of all the tech priests, religious and political and military authority, and frankly is second only to Terra even today in importance to the Imperium.
And probably strength. Like solo planet, that is.
Right. So before the Treaty of Mars, Mars itself had become the society centered around the machine god. And they were fully indoctrinated into the worship of the machine god. The isolation and hardship that they faced under the Age of Strife had made technology synonymous with survival. So maintenance and production and technical competence had become sacred to them.
So sacred, in fact, that they created 16 laws that they follow.
Yes. We did an episode on the Adeptus Mechanicus. We talked about why hexadecimals are really important and why it's 16 and things like that. So that's the basics on who the Mechanicum is. Let's see here.
Now, let's move on to the Emperor. So the Emperor, a very, 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 very long time ago, in a galaxy that is ours. So unfortunately, that's where the Star Wars joke ends. He potentially captured something on Mars prior to the creation of the Mechanicus. Okay? That's somewhat important, somewhat relevant, but it's never really touched on ever again. He goes back to Terra, does his whole Terran crusade and everything, eventually comes back to Mars. The Emperor comes to Mars, and Ross, you know that whole thing, that pesky thing that he tried to do that was super important, where he's like, I am not a god in any way, shape, or form. Don't worship me. Don't build like godlike idols of me, but build statues of me to worship me as a person, as a military general, and my angels, and my giant golden form, and I'm bigger than all of you, and that's important right now. But do not worship me.
Yes.
But to the people or cybernetic inhabitants of Mars, he was like, I am your god, Emperor. I am the Omnissiah. Worship me, magical powers. Build a knight in front of you, or is the Titan? I can't remember. Yeah, the Emperor decided to just like throw all of that to the wind and come to Mars as a god. And they viewed him as the avatar or the avatar of the Omnissiah or the Omnissiah themselves.
Right. This is something we talked about in our Adeptus Mechanicus episode, is that there's kind of a trinity, right? There's the idea of the machine god as the god, the Omnissiah as the Messiah, and the motive force as the Holy Ghost, if you will. So there is technically a trinity as one god that they worship. And the Emperor was like, I am not the machine god, but I am the Omnissiah.
Yeah, but his first impression was definitely like, worship me. He came out like fucking Emperor Cusco's, just kicking open the door. Boom, baby.
So yeah, the Emperor did not want to just invade Mars and add it to the Imperium. He wanted to make a bargain. The idea was he was going to have Mars arm the Great Crusade. It would supply the weapons and the war gear and the ships and the specialists and all of the industrial infrastructure needed to carry humanity back to the stars. And in return, the Mechanicum would retain an extraordinary level of autonomy within the Imperium. They would preserve their own religious tradition despite the imperial truth, which is what Alexis was talking about, where the Emperor was like, don't worship anybody, gods aren't real. And they were like, no, the deal he made here made a very strong exception for the Mechanicum. And then on top of that, they would gain access, the Mechanicum would gain access to all the lost technologies and data that was recovered during the Great Crusade. So that it was a good deal. It was a good deal for both sides.
There's also one more thing you're forgetting, Ross.
What's that?
6, count them, 6 navigator households that are strictly for
Right.
Mars.
Yeah, they would need those. That's true. I mean, I'm generalizing right now. We'll get into the very specific details of the treaty as well. But the Treaty of Mars matters because it established the Imperium as something more than just than just Terra, right? It rests on a sometimes very tense partnership between Terra and Mars, and balances political conquest with technological authority, between the Emperor's vision of human unity and the Mechanicum's faith in the machine god. And what the treaty does, it gives the Imperium its industrial backbone, but it also creates one of its deepest contradictions, because the Imperium claims that uniting humanity must tolerate a semi-autonomous religious state at its heart, because it can't function without it. And that contradiction does not go away.
Yep. And it leads to one of the biggest what ifs ever, which is, what if the Emperor just conquered Mars, got rid of that dogmatic system, and was just like imperial truth only to Mars? And that's why we need to cover that.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I mean, it is a fascinating idea of like a what if. I always assumed that the Emperor kind of had some sort of time pressure on his mind, that he was like, I don't have the time to conquer Mars.
So I think you're right about that, because in other heresy books and even in the Siege of Terra books, the Emperor does feel pressured to start the crusade as early as possible, even to the point of rushing his Primarchs. That's why he doesn't care to repair Angron. He simply doesn't have the time, or to explain everything to his sons. He doesn't have the time. And then when Erda or Chaos, or Erda being controlled by Chaos, because all of those 3 events are true at the same time, when the scattering of the Primarchs happened, the Emperor is just like, okay, I'm not mad at you. You could go over there. I'm never going to pursue you or threaten you in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's almost like your Deus Ex Machina into the story later on. Definitely not a retcon. And he had to just rush. And once his Primarchs were scattered, he was just like, I need to make this treaty. I don't know if the scattering was before or after the Treaty of Mars. I want to say it was before or right after the Treaty of Mars. Can you check that for me?
Yeah, I'm checking that right now.
But regardless,
that's an interesting question.
Yeah, because if it's after, then that makes total sense. He's like, I have to go now. That's it. This is my go turn.
Okay, so no, this is the treaty was before the Primarchs were scattered by about 50 years, 53 years.
Okay, so the Emperor was already working with Mars before the treaty.
Well, yeah, I presume he would need. I figured it's part of the deal to make the Primarch project, is he would probably need access to some of their equipment. But go ahead.
But them being scattered is also another big reason why he just needed to rush everything. Because he knew something was going to happen. He just didn't know it was going to be the scattering of the Primarchs.
Well, you might look at it as the birth of Slaanesh and the cessation of the warp storms that were making space travel impossible. And maybe once that happened, he was like, okay, it's go time. We got to do this. We the first person to get the most planets wins. I have to do this. Maybe.
Yeah, that's also very true.
But the Treaty of Mars, this is why the Adeptus Mechanicus in 40K has its own armies, its own laws, its own forge worlds, its own mysteries, and a permanent seat of power at the highest levels of Imperial government.
I just thought of something, Ross. The Emperor needed to make the treaty as quickly as possible with Mars before Mars actually expanded and collected its other forge worlds.
Yeah, right.
The power of Terra.
Because if he didn't do it, they would have, right?
Yeah.
Somehow, although without navigators, it would have been a lot harder.
But we do know that the Mechanicum can do it,
right?
Because it just takes a much longer time. But they have time. They have almost an infinite lifespan, assuming nothing kills them.
maybe it was the idea of let's integrate this rival or integrate this potential rival before it becomes an enemy. That's a good choice.
Mhm.
That's a good idea too.
Now, we do have some super chats that we should read before we move on.
Sure, fair enough. So our first one is, "Oi, what's with all the Yumis from Biofoot? When's the Xenos turn?" Bro, we have covered so much Xenos on this channel.
Also, speaking of Xenos, next week or this week or one of these weeks is the order for the brand new orcs and everything. And I'm mad, Ross. I'm mad at them. They looted the Ludas out of the damn codex. The Ludas got legend.
Wow. Huh.
I'm so mad about that.
Huh. That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, I am shocked. Ludas have been a thing for a very, very long time. That's interesting.
I think they're going to come back with a kill team later on that makes them not compete with the Flash Kits, because Flash Kits have always just been Ludas, but better. Next up, we have Skitari Boy. The Emperor's greatest mistake was clearly not making the Imperium a submissive state to Mars.
Well, so
state to Mars.
Yeah, I think a lot of this has to do with the idea of humanity eventually becoming a psychic race, and the Mechanicus' focus on logic and the machine god and their cult and everything is less resonant in the warp. I think, I'm not sure, but I think it's less resonant in the warp than your typical human doing human things. And I think the Emperor was like, listen, we're going to have to be a psychic race. We're going to, I don't know, man. The Emperor was crazy. He's a profoundly flawed being who made a lot of mistakes. Was it a mistake to to be subservient to Mars? I don't know. Like, that's a really fun question to ask, though. It would be a far more, I think it'd be a little more boring universe. Let's put it that way. Yeah. I kind of prefer the universe where it didn't happen, but it's a very interesting, good point. And from someone named Skitari Boy, it makes a lot of sense where you would want Mars to be in ascendancy. I get that. Morning to Crescent. Wow, thank you so much, Morning to Crescent. That's awesome.
That's 5,000. Holy crap.
Appreciate you, buddy. He says, no questions, just a thank you, and hope to hear you both a long time. Thank you. No need to read this. It's just the best way to support. Hey. Well,
I didn't read that before I clicked on it.
This is the part of the show where I will say the best way to support Lorebeards and keep more episodes coming at you is super chats. They directly impact the show. They directly impact the host. They help us keep the lights on and bring you more grimdark content. So we appreciate you, Morning to Crescent, and we appreciate everyone who supports us with a super chat.
Hell yeah.
Skitari Boy says, where did the Emperor get his navigators anyways? Well, so the thing is, during the Dark Age of Technology is when the navigator started to emerge. Okay, go ahead.
So some had to be on Terra then.
Yes. Well, they started to emerge kind of throughout humanity as a stable mutation. It is believed in many cases that this has to do with some sort of preparation, some sort of plan. Because, well, it's complicated, really. Let me see if I can.
Something in Warhammer being complicated.
I know, right?
Answered?
It depends. It depends. We will do an episode on the Navigator houses. We absolutely will.
Yeah, because she's the best companion.
I have a statue of her right back there, as a matter of fact.
I'm so jealous of that. I gotta find a 3D file of that so I can get one.
So like I said, the short version is they were a human subspecies that predates the Imperium. So they originated the Dark Age technology. They somewhere between the year 10,000 and the year 22,000, basically. And it's what allows people to make warp jumps. We don't really know too much about that origin beyond it. So, the best I can tell you,
created, but yeah,
they might have been created for a particular reason. It's very likely the Emperor may have had hand in it. We don't know, but we will do a whole show on navigators eventually because they're rad as hell. I love them.
All right, race Skitari Boys pokes up.
I am very biased, he says. Well, you know what? It's fine. You should be Skitari Boy should be eaten well because we had the show on the Adeptus Mechanicus, and today we're doing the Treaty of Mars. We've been covering a lot of Mechanicus stuff, and Larkin Land even before that. So yeah, we've had a lot of Mechanicus stuff.
And if you like the tabletop game, there's a Mechanicus game coming out on next week on my channel, which is Norn Queen Alexis.
That's right.
Okay.
So the Treaty of Mars. The Treaty of Mars is why the Fabricator General of Mars is not just a governor, but one of the most important and most powerful figures in the entire Imperium. The Treaty of Mars is also why we get the Mars becoming a battlefield during the Horus Heresy, because many tech priests came to believe that the treaty transformed their proud civilization into just another piece of Terra and restricted their pursuit of knowledge and placed limits on what they can discover and create. And there's one more complication. I'm so excited because Alexis does not know too much about this, and I'm really excited to see her face when I talk about it.
Okay, all right.
There's the secretive tech enclaves of Phoebe, which is a moon of Saturn, and they were explicitly kept outside the scope of this treaty. They were placed under the Emperor's direct protection through a separate deal, and we're going to have to talk about that whole thing. The Phoebean tech enclaves is where we get the Saturnine Terminator armor, for example.
Oh yeah, this is sort of new lore.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's a new lore, but it's really cool.
Yeah, it's old lore that was then added in. So it's not a retcon because it did exist.
Yes,
but they added the Saturnine Terminators to them.
Right.
Which is really cool.
We will have to go ahead.
When you said Phoebe, you're gonna get this, Ross. No one else is, but me and you are old enough to get this.
Oh God!
I was thinking of Boy Meets World.
I thought you were going to say Charmed.
Oh my God! Yeah, Phoebe's in Charmed as well.
There's even older reference, which is the Monster Squad, which is a movie from the 80s where the youngest daughter was named Phoebe, and they used to tease her by calling her Phoebe the Phoebe. That's how I remember it. Anyway. So, so we're not just talking about a treaty today. We are talking about the moment that the Imperium became possible. It is perhaps the moment that guaranteed it could never truly be simple either, because this created a complication that lasts and lasts and lasts. So the question that we're going to have to ask when we're done is this a genuine alliance between two great civilizations, or is it an unequal bargain made through necessity?
So there is one part of the treaty, and I can't wait to answer your questions, but I have to mention this part. The Emperor promised, and he was very rules as written with this, that he would share all discovered technology that the Imperium discovers.
During the Great Crusade.
Strictly the Imperium discovers. Now, the Imperium didn't include certain organizations. Like if the Custodians discovered something, they kept it secret. Or if Malkador discovered something, or his not Inquisition Inquisitors discovered something, they kept it secret. The stuff within the dark cells was never shared with Mars. But
yeah, this is a treaty that has technically been broken, and it's also technically been renegotiated, which we'll have to discuss as well. But you're right. They did. The Imperium promised certain things that they didn't always hold up. Specifically, the sharing of information. Although Mars is also guilty of this, to be clear.
The crazy thing is, both of them agreed and broke it instantaneously. Like, both of them were just like, yes, we'll share all of our technology. Don't look in the dark cells. Don't look in the labyrinth. And it's like, because like Arkin Land casually mentions it. Like that he's been to and seen technology that has never been shared by the Mechanicum. So it's like, and he shared that with the Emperor, and the Emperor's like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
he same thing actually.
I think both people knew that they were not intending to fully honor it. But honor it enough they have, and honor it they have for enough, certainly for 10,000 years and more. Let's start out with talking about Olympus Mons, the mountain where Terra and Mars made this deal, and this would shape the entire history of the setting of Warhammer 40,000. So, do you want to start with the Emperor convincing them that he's the Omnissiah, or do you want to start with something else?
Okay, so I've already talked about how the Emperor has already been to Mars. This is
That's the. I mean, that's certainly implied.
it's
I don't know if we.
very, very, very implied.
I don't know if
Like
we can
it's
say for a fact that he went to Mars before this happened.
that is true. That is true. I should specify that it's heavily implied that the Emperor had a hand in the creation of the Mechanicum, for his own gain in the future, which is what the Emperor did all throughout Earth's history. Um, but we can't say for certain. But there is something that is slightly important to mention, and that is the Unification Wars had just ended, and the Imperium was gearing up to do their Great Crusade. At the same time, Mars had just survived its major wars and was recovering at the same time. So both of these factions were in recovery phases when they made this deal. So there could have been pressures from both sides that they couldn't afford the war. So it was like, accept the deal, we can renegotiate later. The Imperium is like, accept the deal because we can't afford to go to war with them, even though the Emperor had tens of millions of Astartes on his side. But it doesn't matter how many Astartes he has on his side if he can't get there to fight them. So yeah,
So yeah, it's
I just wanted to set the scene where both of these places are recovering. They are
yeah.
traveling pretty far. And the Emperor does have to reveal technology that he does not want to reveal, which is his flagship.
Amongst and his power, like his like the breadth of his abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so let's just I'll briefly summarize the treaty itself, and then we'll talk about the Emperor landing. Um, it's been described in the codexes and things in very broad strokes. It describes an ancient covenant with the emperor himself. It gives the cult mechanicus a monopoly on and jurisdiction over the use of technology, and it states plainly that it was Mars that the emperor came to when his historic alliance was made. They didn't go to him; he came to them. That's important for them, right? That their pride, the Martian pride, is actually a big deal. And it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the big problems where that comes later with the Schism of Mars, which I really hope we cover. And I bet Scutari Boy would like lose his mind when we cover the Schism of Mars. Um, so the service of groups like the Legio Cybernetica was part and parcel of this treaty and the union with the Emperor. And many of the cohorts of the Mechanicums, military was transferred from their duties as defenders of the Forge Worlds to act as regiments in the Great Crusade. Now, again, the Tech Enclaves of Phoebe were deemed to fall outside of this treaty and were instead placed under the Emperor's direct personal protection. It's a thing called the writ of procurement. We'll have to talk about that at some point. But the treaty, the real story of the treaty begins with the Emperor lands on Mars. This is covered in a book called Mechanicum, written by Graham McNeil, by the way.
Ridiculously good book. It also explains that the AdMech can target things exiting the warp by predicting where they're going to exit. And I love it. It also has the continent-sized Arc Mechanicus.
It's Graham McNeil loves the Mechanicus, and I would say all of his books about the Mechanicus are actually very, very good. So
yes, they are.
Would recommend. So the Emperor did not arrive as a conqueror, but he instead came as a negotiator. He landed atop Olympus Mons, which, in case you're not aware, is the tallest mountain on Mars, also probably the tallest mountain in the solar system, as far as I'm aware. It's huge.
I think it actually. I'm going to check that, but I'm pretty sure you're right.
So
Continue.
this is the Olympus Mons is also the site of the greatest forged temple of Mars. And when the Emperor arrived, he was brought to a damaged knight suit. Okay. I even have the name of this thing. It is, what was it called? Sorry, the Ares Lictor was the name of it. And
You are correct. It is the tallest mountain in the solar system.
it is the tallest mountain in the solar system. So this damaged night suit, the Ares Lictor, basically the Emperor walks over to it and touches it with his hand, and it just repairs itself. He commands it to heal, and it does. This is a seemingly miraculous power over machinery. And this and the Emperor's demeanor, because again, he's a very impressive person. Like his psychic ability and his radiance as a being is tends to instill a sense of awe and respect in just about everyone. There are it doesn't work on literally everyone, but it works on most people. Okay.
Yeah, like that orc that tried to hit him.
So this convinced many of the tech priests, including the fabricator general at the time, a guy called Calchas Tygian, I believe, that the Emperor was the Omnissiah incarnate, the living avatar of their machine god. They've never seen anyone like the Emperor before, and he walked up and touched a night suit, and it just healed itself. Those are big deals. That's why they're like, holy crap, this guy is awesome.
I am listening to you, but my camera decided to not focus on me at all.
Sure. We also have a super chat we should read from our good friend Ricky Chapman, who is a RPG enthusiast. He says, I just finished The Wicked and the Warped, 5 out of 5 stars. That is the new book from Robert Rath, the guy who wrote Infinite and the Divine. So I'm excited to read
that. I came in focus for this. The Wicked and the Warped does not reference Perturabo. It references the Praetorian Guard. It is a guard regiment. It is a guard regiment that Terzine got in older editions. In fact, he thanks an Inquisitor for them. Yeah. Alexis is having a new sphere problem.
Yeah,
I have a lot of problems.
So the treaty then was basically a foregone conclusion, okay? Because if the Emperor is the Omnissiah, they want to have a link with him. The tech priests of Mars are like, we must be connected to this being. And so they started hammering out the terms. And
did I say Perturabo instead of Dorn? I meant to say Dorn. Damn it! Dorn has Perturabo.
Perturabo would be very happy that you said him instead.
You know what? I would love to have like Perturabo is coming back, and I'm excited for it because he's a Primarch that might actually do something.
Oh damn! All right, so the things we know about the treaty, what's actually in the treaty? Religious autonomy for the Mechanicum. They are exempt from the Imperial Truth. They're permitted to continue worshiping the machine god. And even while the Imperial doctrine at the time is militantly secular, they are just, there's a loophole. They get to do all their stuff. They get to pray in public, all that stuff.
Ross, here's a very weird thing that happens. We do know that machine cults exist outside the Mechanicum.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, cults exist everywhere. Now, the Sisters of Battle they don't exist yet, but this is relevant. The Sisters of Battle recognize multiple ways of worshiping the Emperor. One of the jokes being that one cult acknowledges the Emperor as a dung beetle that drags the sun around their planet. And that's part of the, the old, that's fine by the ecclesiarchy, which is, to me, hilarious. I wonder if the Mechanicus got, because they have the autonomy, does that mean that they could check on machine cults and be like, no, this one's A-okay, so you can't harm it? Do you think that at some point in the heresy that they may have done that? Where they're like, this is a machine cult, you can't touch it, these guys are part of us.
I don't know. We don't have any records of that. But I can tell you the Emperor specifically went back to the Mechanicum about 200 some odd years later after the treaty and was like, you're going to give me a bunch of Titans. 25 Titans. And it's called the writ of compulsion. he just went to them and was like, give me 25 Titans. I need these. I need these for my own reasons.
Again, an extremely low number of Titans considering the million worlds they conquered.
25 is not nothing, though.
No, because I'm imagining, in my head, I have to, try, okay. So, Games Workshop is terrible when it comes to military and numbers, okay? You have to remember that. It's written by a bunch of people who either have been in the military but don't care as much because the story is the story itself. It's a space fantasy. That's why people get into close combat instead of just orbital bombardment and everything.
Why carry swords in a world with orbital bombardment?
Exactly. Like, I have a problem, I shoot it from space. But when I heard that story for the first time where he's like, you're gonna give me 25 Titans, I always imagined it as 25 Titan holds. Like, I need 25 Titan legions. So these Titans would then form the Emperor's Legion of Titans that are still loyal to the Mechanicus, but loyal to the Imperium at the same time. Because the Titans did have a schism of their own to the Mechanicum.
Well,
It wasn't as bad. It was, hey, do the thing or we're going to kill you.
yeah, I don't know. We should talk about the Titans as a let's say whole episode on its own.
Yes, we should.
Because largely they are just, I mean, for 99% of the time, they are just subordinate to the Mechanicus. It's the Mechanicus is the Titans are the Mechanicus.
Except for one household, which is House Sinister.
Right, which belongs, guess where House Sinister comes from? Those 25 Titans that he ordered to carry them. This is why the writ of compulsion is a big deal, because the Titans that he takes from that are no longer under the Mechanicum's control. They belong strictly to him, and they become the Nemesis Psi Titans that the Emperor deploys.
And this is why I wanted to bring this up, because the Psi Titans are loyal to the Imperium.
They're loyal to the Emperor, specifically.
Yeah, the Emperor.
Yeah.
Because they're honorarily the third Talon of the Emperor.
Yeah, they really are. And they've only ever been deployed, as far as I know,
against House Mortis.
Well, they were deployed during the burning of Prospero.
Yep.
And I believe they might have been deployed on one of the Armageddon wars. There's a whole, we should do a whole episode on them. They're great. They're super cool.
I'm not sure about that one, but I know that they were deployed in defense of the Lion's Gate.
Yeah, Siege of Terra.
One of the gates, the Siege of Terra. They were deployed in the Siege of Terra. They fought House Mortis and they defeated House Mortis. And their war horns mess with people's minds.
It is said that one Psi Titan can conquer an entire planet just by landing on it and broadcasting its psychic ability across the whole thing. They were deployed in the Great Crusade as well. So, Great Crusade several times, Burning of Prospero, Siege of Terra, and that, I swear they might have been at one of the Armageddon Wars too, but I can't find any information on that.
I don't think they were, like, I see that Nesta Vertumber is saying that they were deployed against the 13th Black Crusade.
That was the 2003 version, right? That's probably not the 2018 version.
I want to say it's the 2003 version, so it's no longer canon.
The alternate timeline, yeah. All right, so the thing about the religious autonomy, it's a big deal because the rest of the Imperium is completely secular at this time. But the tech priests of Mars were like, we believe in the Messiah and the machine god. They were going around praying and do all this stuff, but they were so different from humanity and so necessary that they were just kind of tolerated or ignored. Like that part was just, everyone's like, fine, they get a loophole, whatever. We need bullets and we need ships and we need robots and we need power armor. So we have to put up with it. The second part of the treaty is political autonomy. Mars and all the Forge worlds connected to Mars got their self-governance and jurisdiction over their own internal structure. The Emperor was like, I am not going to interfere in your internal affairs. Which, of course, this would later be broken because there's Inquisitors that do interfere with Mechanicus affairs in 40K.
There's also flat out that the Emperor told them that they can't experiment on mutants anymore.
Well, we're going to get to that. There's the technology monopoly. This is also something they agreed to in the treaty. The Mechanicum got exclusive authority over the use, alteration, and maintenance of technology throughout the Imperium. Period. Technology was ours, is what said the Mechanicum. Then the Imperium, this is something you pointed out, the Imperium gave them 6 navigator houses and astropaths, entire choirs of astropaths, so that the Mechanicum could coordinate all of its scattered forge worlds and resume exploring the galaxy for their quest for knowledge. The quest for knowledge, we covered that in the Adeptus Mechanicus episode. Go check that out. It's basically their philosophy of it's a form of manifest destiny where all technology and data belongs to the Mechanicum, and that's what they believe, and that's why they go search for it, and that's the quest for knowledge. They also, the other part of the treaty said that the Mechanicum would get access to all of the technology and data recovered both on Terra and any worlds conquered during the Great Crusade. This is another thing he pointed out, Alexis. Because clearly they didn't get all of the data on Terra, and they clearly didn't get all of the data recovered from the Great Crusade.
Yeah.
But they probably got the lion's share. I think we can say they got at least 90%.
Yeah, they got like 2/3. I would say.
All right.
Well, there's entire planets where they don't know anything about the technology there that the Imperium knows about, like Necromunda. But then again, Necromunda is its own separate macrocosm of
40K adjacent.
Yeah.
It's 40K adjacent. If people if their demand is there, we will talk about Necromunda because we can.
Yes.
It is 40K adjacent, so we could certainly talk about it. Anyway, the last thing that the treaty says, aside from the restrictions on the Mechanicus, is that the Mechanicus would then, in exchange for all of the things that I just said that they were granted, they would supply all the weapons, the warships, the material, the technicians, the Titan legions, the Skitarii covenants. They would just give everything they could to make the Great Crusade happen. And the reason why this is a thing that benefited both sides is because the Great Crusade would, A, encounter a lot of technology and data that the Mechanicus wanted, and B, many of the places the Great Crusade could reach were forge worlds that had been isolated and lost and then could be brought back into the fold to Mars. So Mars got a lot out of it. They got valuable experience for their military. They got a lot of data and information that they wouldn't otherwise get. They got access to forge worlds that they wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. They got the astropaths. They got the navigator houses, and they got the security of being protected and defended by the Imperium. Because this treaty, it doesn't state it outright, but by the fact of the Mechanicum being folded into the Imperium, that the Imperium would have to fight for them and protect them and defend them against any threats that they would encounter.
Oh, I did look it up for the Psi Titans deployments.
Yeah.
So they were, let's see, they were in the Siege of Terra. They were out during the conquering of the galaxy. They were at the burning of Prospero.
Yep.
The burning of Prospero had 5 of them. Just 5. The War in the Webway had 1 of them at least.
What's funny is the burning Prospero doesn't really talk about what they did. We know they were there, but there's hardly any description of what they did.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fascinating.
So almost none of these have information about them. It's almost like information about the Psi Titan is kept super secret.
Super secret, indeed.
Let's see. One House Sinister Psi Titan, because they are called House Sinister, was in a battle. We don't know what planet or anything. It was M31. There were 2 more deployed during 3 were deployed against the Dark Mechanicum during M31, which is interesting.
Well, M31 would have been scouring.
Yeah. Which is weird that it mentions the Dark Mechanicum.
Well, so one of the things that the Dark Mechanicum likes to do is tamper with technology that incorporates the warp. So it's possible the Psi Titans were deployed to shut down some sort of warp-powered technology.
That is true.
Ironically, the Psi Titans use warp-powered technology.
Oh, a lot of it.
Yes.
And then the last entry is that they were used during the Siege of Terra.
Okay.
So they were only ever used during the Great Crusade, and anything after that is speculative at best.
Yeah, I think Nestor Vitumber is right. I think they might have been listed in the 13th Black Crusade from 2003. I do remember seeing them in an order of battle from something in there around that time.
They were in a so the latest thing that I could see is that they were in an Inferno comic, and they were in a White Dwarf.
Okay, well, there's a model of them. I don't think it's in production anymore, but there was at least a model of them made one time.
There is a model of it currently in production.
Is there? Okay.
Yes, for the Titanicus game.
Ah, there you go. So you could actually get yourself a cool picture of a cool Sci Titan for your force if you really want. All
And
right.
as far as we know, there are 20 Psi Titans still active. Only 5 were ever destroyed, maybe. But it says at least 20. So again, grain of salt with all of that. I did just look at the Wexicanum. Yep, the Lexicanum. So this could be wrong. So if anybody else finds anything, I will actually let them know, so that they could update it.
Well, so where were we? Right. It's called the Treaty of Mars on Terra. The tech priests call it the Treaty of Olympus Mons in honor of the location where the Emperor first set foot on the Red Planet. And to commemorate the union, check out my cool shirts. To commemorate the union, the Emperor redesigned his personal heraldry. The old sigil throughout the Unification Wars was a single raptor's head over a pair of cross lightning bolts. This is called the Raptor Imperialis, and it is the emblem of the Emperor's forces during that time frame. But after that, we get the Aquila, the two-headed imperial eagle, and the two heads symbolize the joint destinies of Terra and Mars. In universe, Olympus Mons itself is the seat of the Fabricator General of Mars and houses the most important machine temple on all of Mars, which is called the Temple of All Knowledge. So it is both the treaty's namesake and the physical heart of the Mechanicum's power to this very day, to the current era, which I think is really cool. So it is really cool. It's basically Mecca for tech priests is Olympus Mons. It's super important for a bunch of reasons, and one of them is the fact that this is where it was signed. But not everybody was happy about this.
Yeah, I wasn't.
The old Fabricator General died and was removed, and the new Fabricator General, the guy's name is Kelbor Hall. He would become very important during the Horus Heresy.
Nah, he's probably a nobody.
And he rose to power partially because of the frustrations of the other tech priests. And he viewed the Treaty of Mars as a mechanism by which the Emperor would gradually subordinate all the Martian forge worlds to imperial authority. And he definitely resented the restriction on research into forbidden and dangerous technologies.
Dun, dun, dun. Experimentation on mutants and altering the gene code of the human, which is sacred.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit about what tech heresy is in the Adeptus Mechanicus episode.
Yep.
It by and large, there are very few things you can say are specifically like this is true everywhere. But amongst them are things like technology that touches upon or incorporates the power of the warp, technology that messes around with souls or the dead, technology that incorporates Xenos tech or is inspired from Xenos tech. Those are generally like the big ones, and then like there's a bunch of other things underneath that.
Ross,
including tampering with the genome of the human body. Yes.
Now, Ross, we know that the Emperor has never, ever done anything that would ever betray all of those simultaneously. Don't look at the Calexis assassin. I see you looking over there. You're looking for a Calexis assassin, but there is no Calexis assassin. The Calexis assassin doesn't violate every single tech heresy all at once.
Now, the things that are outlined by the Treaty of Mars are actually part of an older Martian law, which was called the Crimson Accords. And the Emperor kind of rooted these restrictions in the treaty from this older agreement to make it seem like it was always something that Mars had in practice. Now we don't know like specifically what that texts are. We don't know, but it is said that the Crimson Accords, this is part of the Mechanicum's own foundation during the Aegis Strife, specifically prohibited the creation or service of abominable intelligence, what they call the Silica Animus, which is another thing that is always considered tech heresy. There was an old machine rebellion during the Dark Age technology, something called the War with the Men of Iron. And afterwards, it was considered abominable, soulless intelligence to have it from a machine and not from a person. And that is a very, very old prohibition. So to be very clear, So that is the thing. But the restrictions that we know of are things like, that Mars had to change all of its focus from do whatever you want to support the Great Crusade. This is not a minor procurement contract. This makes every forge on Mars needed to contribute, and they had quotas to meet, and they had, basically it changed everybody from I'm a fun researcher doing like all this cool stuff. I'm like looking into all this weird technology, and all of a sudden the Emperor shows up and says, "Okay, now you need to make bullets and power armor and tanks and plasma generators." And they're like, "Yeah, but it's kind of boring. I want to focus on other stuff." No. 3D Mars says you have to do this. So that is part of the agreement, is that while Mars could govern itself, it did have to change its focus towards supporting their ally, to the exclusion of many of their other, not entire exclusion, but it was a big chunk of their industrial base that was then tied up doing this. Okay. Now the research that the Emperor put limits on, it is called chains that are strung around the heart of the Mechanicum, which shows you how they felt about it. Okay.
I feel like that's a little bit of an exaggeration.
Okay, so certain Dark Age technology, weapons, and tech was just off limits. Warp and demon fused experiments were off limits. Any technology that would likely recreate any catastrophes from the Age of Strife or Old Night was off limits. Silica Animus or artificial intelligence was off limits. That is the ones we know of for sure, but it's implied that there's definitely many more. It did not forbid innovation, to be very clear. The Mechanicum was already very conservative. They were already very doctrinally restrictive on what you could do. But this was kind of like the step too far. Like this, there were clearly tech priests who were like, you'll take my tech from my cold dead hands, it certainly restricted innovation, but that is again part of the Cult Mechanicus, and the current era 40K, where innovation is just banned outright. A lot of that comes because of the schism of Mars and what happened, because there were people innovating and experimenting and doing weird stuff. And when that was released during the schism of Mars, so that all happens later, after much later after the treaty, hundreds of years later.
Yeah. Oh, and for Nest of Rotumbra, I did look up where you were trying to find the Side Titan stuff. I cannot find anything to state that is canon. Everything that I've looked at does not mention the Armageddon Wars or the 13 Black Crusades. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I cannot find anything.
Like I said, I'm with him. I seem to remember them being in the order of battle, but it's fair to say.
I do too, but I'm pretty sure it's from the Gosgold book.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, not the Gosgold, the 13 Black Crusade, the one with Abaddon crushing the planet on the front of it.
The 2003 cool. Alternate history. Yes.
Yeah.
The one where Malg and Ra started a one-sided rivalry with Abaddon. I'm your greatest enemy. I don't even know who you are, says Abaddon.
Who? You destroyed my world. For me, that was a Tuesday.
Got a super chat from BB Asham. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could be wrong. Or B Basham, maybe.
You'll have to tell me. I'm just going with Big Booty Asham.
Hey. He says, cheers. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate your support there. Elemental Exposure says, so COG boys hate Copilot as much as the rest of us. Well, some of them did. Kelbor Hall was, one of the biggest things about the resentment here is that Kelbor Hall was very resentful about this. He hated the idea that all of the Martian strategy and all of the Martian ambitions were now subordinate to the Imperium. Because they were going where the Imperium was going. They were doing what the Imperium was doing. When the Emperor said, we're going here, that's where the Mechanicus went. And so much of their industry and strength was tied up in this that they just weren't doing things on their own. You could argue that they could have maybe sent an explorator fleet on their own, But why, when you can have the might of the Imperium protect you? If you have Space Marines that can just show up and fight off whatever the hell's there, why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
It was also like one of the big things is that half of the Mechanicum did like what the Imperium was doing. Because they were like, this is the Omnissiah's will. That's clearly the Omnissiah. Let's go with them. And then it was the other half of it was cost analysis. Well, they're losing a lot of dudes that don't cost us anything.
Right.
That's totally fine. We can then reinforce these planets for our own later on and even negotiate for even more Forge Worlds. Because Forge Worlds can be built. They're just not as efficient as older Forge Worlds, because that's how it works in the Imperium.
This resentment was actually the reason why Horus was able to secure half of all the Martian stuff during the heresy itself, because he went to Kelber Hall and struck his own bargain with Horus. And he what Horus promised was, I'm going to lift all the technological restrictions. You're going to support me just like you supported him, but I will give you more autonomy, more authority. Like when this is all done and over, you're going to be in a much better place than you were.
There was one thing that I feel like Horus implied in his deal. It's never stated, but I think he wanted them to worship him instead of the Omnissiah.
Well, if the Emperor could do it, why couldn't he? Right?
Exactly. Like, he was touched by all 4 Chaos Gods, which if that happens to you, you should probably go to therapy. And I could see him, because at that moment, this was Horus fully corrupted by chaos when he went, right? He had all 4. Yeah, he was selected by all 4. And this is after this after he died to the wolf spear?
Yes.
Then he was fully corrupted by chaos.
Yeah, this is after he's been to Davin. He's had the visions of the Chaos Gods. He's fully committed himself to fighting the Emperor. It's not, so to be clear, the fully this what is it my full power. Yeah, his full power is when he's on board the vengeful spirit at the Siege Terra. That's called Horus Ascended. So he's not quite there yet. He's not Super Saiyan. He's a normal Horus.
Yeah,
but he's normal corrupt Horus.
Sorry, you mean Super Saiyan Ascended Super Saiyan Blue, which is an actual thing from Dragon Ball Z Super.
God.
I cannot stand. I think Super sucks. I am one of the few people that's just like, it ended at Dragon Ball Z. The story had a conclusion. Goku was turning into an old guy that trained Oob. That was such a better ending for him, for Goku to become a mentor. That was a better ending. And then they did Super, and Super has one cool moment in it, and it's when Bulma gets slapped by Beerus, and freaking Vegeta just loses his shit and just like beats the hell out of the god. I was just like, you know what, Vegeta, that's cool.
Today on Anime Beards.
Look, I don't like Dragon Ball Z's like community online, but I love Dragon Ball Z.
Clearly, I think it's great that you do, but
yeah.
To get back to the treaty, I think we need to talk about like we need to talk just in the fact that the Horus Heresy happened, the schism on Mars happened, which again I want to cover in a whole episode because a whole lot of shit happened. But the basic story is that half of Mars turned against the other half, and they fought each other. There were some Space Marines involved, but not very many. And at the end of all this, when the Imperium won, quote unquote. They redesigned the structure of the Imperium in general. This is when the Adeptus became a thing, the Adeptus Terra. So prior to the Horus Heresy, the Adeptus Terra did not exist. After the Emperor was wounded and put on the Golden Throne, they had to come up with more a different structure for their bureaucracy, and that's why they created the Adeptus Terra, and they reorganized the Mechanicum into the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, this is when people seem to say that this is the new Treaty of Mars, because they have the Mechanicum became rededicated to this treaty as the Adeptus Mechanicus. I think at this point they knew that they couldn't exist without each other, right? The Mechanicum was like, we're screwed from the Schism of Mars, just like the Imperium is screwed from the Horus Heresy. We have to work together in order to survive. And so they essentially renegotiated the treaty, and this is where the restrictions on innovation come into play. This is where the sort of ossification or fossilization of science happens, because the tech priests at the time were so horrified by what had been unleashed during the Schism of Mars that they were like, never again. We are absolutely not touching any of that shit ever again. The emperor was right to forbid it, and we're not ever going to go there.
Now, I do need to remind people that during this time, a lot of technology was either lost or forbidden. A lot of the like Castellax class battle automata were forbidden because they were starting to become too sentient. Because the Dark Mechanicum was just like, we shoved demons into them. And it's like, maybe we don't want robots that are easily corrupted. That's a bad idea.
Not for nothing, the Thousand Sons developed their own version that could be psychically controlled at a distance without punch cards. You could just use your psychic powers to do it. Or for the Thousand Sons, under a certain point of view, you could call it sorcery controlled them, depending on how you want to look at it.
And then there's the cyber theurgy was completely lost because almost all of them fell to chaos. So the practice, while not officially gone, like that could very easily come back in the future. Like it would be really cool to get a cyber theurgist for 40K. I'd be right on board with that. But at this point, that was also lost. A lot of their tech to make the Castellan robots, the Vorax battle automata, and more horrific weapons of war were lost or forbidden by the Codex Astartes that was being adopted by all forces. Destroyer class weaponry that Rabute Gilliman listed, such as radiant weapons, rad weapons, and things like that. Though Mars largely got away with their rad weapons, they weren't so themselves. Yeah, they're totally radical. Shaka bra. Anyway, rad weapons were not as common anymore, but Mars managed to keep theirs because they had a separation of their technologies and everything, and they had to restructure themselves and forbid a lot of their own technologies and innovations because the war was getting way too dangerous and way too many monsters started appearing. And that's spooky and scary.
Yeah, I want to push back a little bit because I don't think it was because most of them fell to chaos. It's kind of like, in a lot of sense, it's kind of like some of the technology that no longer exists post-heresy, like Volkite tech and adamantic reactors and things like that. Cyber theurgy didn't so much vanish as it got broken apart and buried. So yeah. during the heresy...
I should... do you mind if I just... Yeah. What I meant is the ones that are still practicing it are with the Dark Mechanicum.
Well, there's a reason for that, and I'll get into why the ones that are still practicing it openly are with the Dark Mechanicum. It's not due to chaos corruption, but it's more due to the conservatism of the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Okay? Yes,
because during the heresy, cyber theurgy was this discipline that used data rights and machine manipulation, and you could enhance or disrupt robots and other technology. Okay. We cover it in the Adeptus Mechanicus episode, so we're going to reference that quite a bit today. So the heresy, though, was very disruptive on a lot of fronts, on a lot of technology, a lot of people, a lot of experts, and it destroyed a lot of archives of knowledge. So anything resembling a very flexible machine control was basically politically radioactive. Also, the fact that it was indistinguishable from warp magic. Remember, we talked about how cyber theurgy looks like magic. So the post-heresy Adeptus Mechanicus, they're like, you know what, we're gonna stick to what's safe, what's good enough for my father, good enough for his father, good enough for me. So they use the Datasmith programming and the doctrine wafers and the engine seer rights, new spheric commands, but they suppressed the dangerous, more broader discipline of cyber theurgy. And it's another way that the Mechanicus survived, because they turned their understanding into rituals. So that's good.
Yeah, it's also why characters like Belisarius Cawl are seen as heretics by a good chunk of the Mechanicum, because Belisarius just digs up things such as the Volkite weapons and starts redoing them as Neo-Volkite weapons,
Right.
which are somehow more dangerous than their contemporaries, which is horrifying that a death ray got even more dangerous because of Belisarius.
So cyber theurgy was also uncomfortably. Cyber theurgy was about as far as the Crimson Accords. Remember, that's the pre Treaty of Mars set of restrictions. Even the Crimson Accords were like, this is on the edge, because cyber theurgy is not actually AI. It's not actually psychic powers. It's not necessarily warp based or demonic, but it looks like all three of those things.
What's funny about it is
it acts like all three of those things.
It works kind of like ChatGPT, as dumb as that is, because it's a system of suggestions that the machine then breaks and thinks, not fully thinking, but uses programs to think for itself. So it's not artificial intelligence, it's like that. So even things like ChatGPT would be banned in the Imperium.
So yeah, so the Dark Mechanicum welcomes cyber theurgists, because this is it's not only is it something that Mars frowns upon, but it kind of reinforces the idea that cyber theurgy is a Dark Mechanicum thing and not a Mechanicus thing. So it's kind of a natural progression of turning something into a what's the word I'm looking here for? Turning it into a practice that is considered bad, even if it's not really that bad.
Now, GW, stop being cowards and give us Dark Mechanicum. We do have a couple of super chats to read.
I was just thinking about that. So Guitar Boy says, how many violations have the treaty has called done? Well,
all right. So, do you know how Canada goes to war and has to review the Geneva Convention for loopholes?
It's a checklist for Call.
For Call, there's he has a whole list of shenanigans that he can do, and then he scuttles to do them.
It's the thing about Call is he's very clever about hiding his heresy within the very labyrinthian codes of conduct for the Mechanicus. He is absolutely considered a maverick, an extremist, a radical. He is considered the furthest out you could be and still not quite be a tech heretic, because he's absolutely experimented with artificial intelligence. He's absolutely experimented with machines that work with the warp.
He studies and uses Xenos tech.
Yes, he does all of the things.
He keeps a Necron Cryptech as a partner.
But he's really good at finding loopholes within the doctrine of the cult on Messiah to say, no, this is fine. This is fine. See, actually, according to, if you interpret the text this way, it's fine. And so far, the fact that he's been around for so long, the fact that he has so much influence and power over the Mechanicus, not to mention the support of the Lord Regent of Terra, has kept him in a position where people are like, I want to cast him down, but I just can't. I don't have enough proof, right? The level of proof you need to take down Call is pretty high. Pumpkin Historian says, does serving oil margaritas violate the treaty? No, I think that's probably fine.
That's a sacred ungulance.
That is pretty great. And Nestor Ritumbra says, Imperial Armor Fires of Syraxis Morning Stream. Huh. Okay. What is that? Is that about where
for the Psi Titans?
The Psi Titans? Is that where they were?
I will look that up.
That is not a book I'm familiar with. Imperial Armor Fires of Syraxis. I've definitely seen the Imperial Armor books are great, and I want to talk about the Siege of Rax. I want to talk about Castoral Nervem. I want to talk about there's all kinds of stuff I want to talk about. There's the Imperial Armor books are great. Batibor. We need to talk about that.
Batibor is really good.
Juju Voodoo says beep to you, sir. Beep boop. We're talking about the Mechanicus. Love it. Okay. So, one thing about the Treaty of Mars that's really important to note is that there's actually a lot of legal ambiguity within it. The precise boundaries are deliberately, or I would say more useful to the narrative, ambiguous, because 10,000 years later, we're still not sure about some of the things that are in it. Okay. Like the treaty protects the freedom of religious interpretation of the cult Mechanicus, but it doesn't permit like a single mandated theology. It's unclear whether the Inquisition has any authority over the Mechanicum, or the Mechanicus in general. Although the Inquisition certainly believes that they do, and sometimes the Mechanicus allows it. So there's that. There's a lot of unresolved tension that Games Workshop is left in by design, I think. So Mars, it's important to remember that this treaty was a big deal because Mars's pride was very
Hurt.
very, very high. It is said that Mars suffered no affront to the majesty of the Forge Worlds. Okay, that's a big deal. It's said that the other Forge Worlds solemnly respect the Red Planet's historical primacy. Mars was the king of its domain. So the treaty kind of takes this entire star empire and says, no, you are now part of us. And there's good reasons why you're going to be part of us, but you're now part of us. And it's all based on that trick, question mark, of the Emperor proving that he's the Omnissiah by healing the knight at Olympus Mons.
This has happened. So weirdly, I got to figure out the order of operations by writing. Did the Sisters of Battle have the lore of Gorge Van Dyer tricking them before or after this, Ross?
Before.
So it's the same trick.
It is very similar.
Okay, it's the same goddamn trick of going to a group of barbarians and just going, ooh, magic, worship me.
It's also true that when the Emperor arrived, there was a very strange atmospheric phenomena, rain on Mars, which doesn't really, and this is all part of this whole deal, right? And to the people who witnessed the Emperor going up to the night and causing it to repair itself, this fulfilled a prophecy of the Omnissiah. This fulfilled many legends that had been told about who the Omnissiah was and the things that he could accomplish. To put it into things we could understand, it's as if somebody showed up and turned a bunch of water into wine and then, made bread and fish appear for a billion people all at once. And we'd be like, hey, that's a lot like the legends we have, right?
Hey, that's like that guy in Fortnite.
Right.
Is Jesus playable in Fortnite? I feel like he should be playable in Fortnite.
Yeah. So it's important to remember this is not just the Emperor fixes a robot. Okay. The on Mars, survival was inseparable from technology. So this is a sacred thing. A knight it's not a titan, but it is to some extent a representation of the machine god, an idol, almost an idol. So the Martians are like, who is this guy? This guy, he shows up, he heals a knight, he's incredibly awe-inspiring to everyone who looks at him. Is he a conqueror or is he an ally? And the Emperor is like, no, I'm your friend. We will work together. And that
I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Don't worry, pal. Just take my hand or get really close to me.
So he basically causes a miracle to happen in a way that is consistent with the Martian religion, and then uses that as a platform to leverage this political alliance. Which again, I think it's really interesting because the timing is important, the actions are important.
There is one more thing, Ross.
Yeah,
he might have gone to Mars to make that whole thing up, to then prove to them, because that's the way the Emperor rolls.
Absolutely, it is. It certainly seems like a trick. Like I think we can all sit here and go, it's very convenient that all of these things lined up and happened the way that they did just before he decided to say, hey, you're going to be my ally and help me do the thing that I need to do. And you're the only people who can do the thing that I need to do. By the way, I'm your Messiah. Yeah. We forgot to talk about the golden spaceship. Would you like to talk about the golden spaceship that he arrives in?
So the Emperor's craft is insane, to say the least. As far as we know from canon sources, it is just an Imperial spaceship, but it is made out of Terran technology. Made strictly by the Emperor, probably, or the Emperor's personal, doodadders. I don't know what he calls his mechanics.
Well, yeah, what were they called prior to? We don't know. Like,
Yeah, because they weren't Martians. Like they just flat out were on Terra when he made his spaceship. That's at least somewhat of where we know that this ship was made by the Emperor and his group of dudes.
we don't know.
Uh
Like, he's got a couple of ships that have names. We're not sure which one it was. There's the Bucephalus, and
yep.
there's the Imperator Somnium. The Imperator Somnium is what he used in the Great Crusade, but it might have been the Bucephalus. But it is called a golden spaceship of some kind.
Now, the things that we know that it shares in common with the custodian spaceships, which is the fact that they're almost
Gold.
untrackable. They are gold. They are incredibly fast. They are faster in the warp than almost all other ships, even though that doesn't make much sense. Uh, sure,
It's
I guess the blanks help.
said to be faster.
Yeah,
We
said
don't
to
know for
be.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it always arrives at the speed of plot. Um, which is almost as fast as, if not faster than the cameraman. Um, there's not much else that we know about it. We know that it's a gargantuan ship. We know that it's a battle cruiser or bigger in scale of ship. We know that it has
Right.
planet breaking capabilities. We know that it can commence exterminatus on planets. We know that it probably has some of the strongest weapons on it, but we can't say for certain whether it does or not. Um, I'm assuming it does because it's the Emperor's one of the Emperor's ships. Potentially not the flagship, potentially the flagship.
Yeah, like I said, it could be the Bucephalus, could be the Imperator Somnius. We're not sure.
Yeah. Is there anything else I'm missing about it? We know that the custodians are kept on it. We know that sometimes
Very
the
little's
Dark
known.
Angels are on it.
It's very unknown. We know very little about it.
Hmm.
But what we do know is that the treaty and the Emperor's arrival, this is all showing very unusual restraint for the Emperor. Okay, because any other civilization he's encountered, he just folds it into the Imperium. He makes it a subordinate realm. Okay. But for the Mechanicus, he makes this big exception. He's like, no, 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 you're going to be my ally. You're going to be with us, but not of us, right? This is a
Hmm.
very calculated choice because the autonomy that Mars gets is costly, but war with Mars would probably be more costly and would probably destroy assets that he urgently needs.
I also don't think that he could. Uh, One of the big thing is he can't directly win the war against them because he needs as many of them alive to work on his shit as possible. So if he did go to war with them, then it delays the Great Crusade.
This moment, the moment before the treaty where he heals the knight, that is why the Mechanicum and the Mechanicus 40K see the Emperor as part of their religion. They see him as the Omnissiah. They believe him to be an avatar of the machine god. That's huge. That's why their whole thing is priesthood, right? Their whole thing is religion. And
Mhm.
so this establishes the Emperor as a major figure. Maybe not like the most major, but definitely like right up there, like right at the very top. So
I'm also
it
trying to
is.
check if there's any more information about the Emperor's flagship, if there is any.
So it's this miracle that he performs, right? The healing of the night. Um, is it divine? Is it technological? Is it staged? Is it all three?
Oh, here's something interesting. If it's the Somnus that he arrived in,
Imperator
the s-
Somnium?
yeah, the Somnium, then that ship it couldn't be that ship because that ship was constructed by Mars.
Yeah, so it's probably the Bucephalus, but
It has to be the Bucephalus.
it doesn't have to be, but it's likely the Bucephalus.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the Bucephalus is a battle barge, so it's similar in structure to a space marine craft than a Imperial Navy craft, which means I can tell you a bit more about this now because I know a thing or two about Imperial Navy ships. That means that it's focused more on close assault, which makes sense considering that it's hard to read and it's really good at getting close. And it has custodians on board, which custodians teleportariums are much stronger than space marine teleportariums. It also has a couple of lances at that point. If they're using the best weapons possible, it has lances and it has 1 to 2 torpedo batteries, and it probably has a ton of fighters that come out of it.
well, this
Uh,
is to be clear, this is centuries before battle barges were a standardized design.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
So this is
it could have all kinds of
highly
weird.
speculative.
Yeah, it probably had a lot different. It probably had a lot of different weapon systems and things that we would be used to. It did. It almost certainly had Space Marines aboard it, though, right? Because it
Ross,
was yes,
could you imagine attack craft coming out of that thing manned by custodians?
right, right.
Because it would be their grav tanks coming
Yeah,
out.
you could or something, something analogous to a
Yeah.
Thunderhawk, right? Stormbird. We're not sure. We're not sure. There's very little information on this ship.
Yeah, there's little to no information about the Emperor's flagship, it turns out.
Wild speculation, but the idea of a custodian crewed battle barge is pretty awesome, to be honest. And for a Battlefleet Gothic fan like myself, I'm like, oh my God, how cool would that be? Holy shit.
How strong would that be?
It would be very strong.
Oh my God. Okay. I have to stop thinking about this because I'm going to focus on this and then I'm going to write up rules for this and then I'm going to hand them to you. And me and you are going to be like, no, it has to be a little stronger because the custodians, but they probably only have like 3 attack craft. Anyway.
I'm gonna throw up a poll about the miracle because it's such a big deal. And the question is, the miracle of healing the night. Was the Emperor's miracle technological, divine, or staged?
The Somnus might be my favorite vessel ever, and I need you to hear this. Constructed with the secrets of the Dark Age of technology, as such, it wields formidable weaponry such as the Volkite Storm accelerators,
Woo!
10 Nova cannons. This thing has 10 Nova cannons.
Jesus Christ, 10? That's a lot. That's an entire battle fleet worth of
yes.
Jesus.
That kills nothing kills this.
All right, we got to poll up for people to vote on the nature of the Emperor's miracle. I did put the 3 ideas of its technological, divine, stage, and actually the 4th one is all of the above. So you could look at it in any of these ways. Let's see what the Lore Seekers think.
Ross, it has red fusion warheads.
Nice.
It has nuclear weapons.
Yep.
For its
the Imperator Somnius is it's the flagship of the Emperor. It should be like crazy, but 10 Nova cannons is beyond what I was imagining. That's pretty wild.
This thing could why didn't this thing just turn in one shot Horus's flagship?
Right, the Vengeful Spirit. Where was this at the Siege of Terra? That's a really good question.
What, did he drive it away?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Hang on. It was used by the owner Crusade. How do you lose a battle with this thing?
Right. So people get your votes in. We will see what people think here shortly, but it looks like so far, Spitfire, I'm not sure why your vote wasn't recorded, because you should be able to just enter a number. Pumpkin Historian, just look at your vote was recorded either. That's odd.
Write it again.
Yeah, type it in again if you would. See what happens. The power of plot. Did I screw something up on that poll? I don't think so. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. We can even move it around.
What?
Yeah,
that's
look at that.
Crazy. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, so it is recording. It's recording some votes, but it doesn't seem like it recorded all of them. I'm not sure what's going on.
Apparently, whoever was flying this thing is absolutely terrible at Battlefleet Gothic because it only destroyed 4 World Eater heavy cruisers and the Emperor's Children's battle barge before being torn apart by enemy fire. So it did die. Yeah, so that explains it. But how do you lose a battle with 10 Nova cannons?
I mean, holy shit.
Like, you're firing so much ordnance out of that you have to worry about the stabilization of planets.
I'm going to try and vote in. I'm going to put a vote in the chat, see if it records my vote. Yeah, it did. You recorded my vote, so weird.
I'm like losing my shit at
you are. I need you to focus, Alexis.
Okay.
Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Think about the Treaty of Mars.
Okay, we're back to the Treaty of Mars. I mean, oh my God, if he came up to me with a ship with 10 Nova cannons, I'd sign anything he wanted me to.
God, Alexis. I know the way to your heart is a ship, a spaceship. My God.
Exactly.
Victor needs to buy you one. All right. So, what would your choice be on this poll? I'm going to say I'm actually going to go with number 3. I think it was staged. I don't think it was divine. I don't think it was technology. I think he used his psychic. I think he used his psychic powers to do it.
So I think it's all of the above.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I always go by what the custodian said to I think it was Gilliman, where he says like God and godlike mean nothing to me when there's like when you stand next to the emperor. Yeah, what's the difference? So to me it's all of the above, but I do think that he staged it. I think that he made it all up.
Well, all of the above is definitely the primary answer on that one. I think it's pretty great to it's entirely in character for the emperor to just pretend to be a god, even though he tells everybody not to worship him as well, right?
Oh, there goes Kofu. Yep.
I mean, I know you have mentioned this many times that it is a very hypocritical thing for him to do, but he often does it.
Yeah. I mean, he does it a lot, though. That's the problem, is that he's like, Lorgar, don't worship me as a god. Also, I'm not going to ban Lectitio Divinitatis. It's like, maybe you should say something about that.
So calling the emperor the Omnissiah is kind of a religious compromise for the Mechanicus, because in their theology, the machine god is the avatar of wisdom and knowledge. Okay, and the cult Mechanicus, their divine trinity is the machine god, the Omnissiah, and the motive force. So this would put the emperor at the apex of knowledge and information, which is something that's very sacred to them in the first place. I'm sure there were many debates on Mars whether the emperor was a prophet or some sort of manifestation of the greater machine god, or whatever. But it was obvious that he was something very important and very different from just a regular guy from Earth.
Yeah, he was very powerful, and I guess it depends how strong the voices were that saw it, because not all of Mars saw it.
No, the word had to be spread, right?
Yes, and I think that's what the rain was for.
Maybe to give them something physical to look at. I don't know,
because everyone felt the rain,
right?
And that's important because then everyone knows that a miracle happened on Mars. So then for the next thing to be said is that the Omnissiah came to visit. It's like, yeah.
Elemental Exposure says he did a Maudib on Mars. Yes, that's what he did. He made it rain. He made it rain on Mars. Dune is such a huge foundational stone for 40K. You have no clue how strong Dune's influence is. It's a major influence.
Games Workshop has never taken any inspiration from Dune ever. Don't look at the Landcrawler or the Lasgun.
Right.
Or the Sand, or the Psychers, or the Emperor.
Or the Orders Famulus, or the Orders Sabine, or the Orders, what's the other one? Dialogus. There's a lot of stuff that's very Bene Gesserit about this. This is Battle for just one example, and then the Navigator houses, and then all the stuff.
Or the shielding, or, why melee has to be a thing.
Scutari Boy says, I wonder how many Inquisitors die trying to investigate tech priests whose only illegal activity is killing those who try to investigate them. The Martians get away with a lot. As an Inquisitor, you have you're supposed to have ultimate authority, but that ultimate authority only really goes so far as people are willing to believe it and follow it. In the Imperium side of the Imperium, the non-Mechanicus side, Inquisitors have a great deal of power, but even the Ecclesiarchy can say, no thanks from time to time. Just like the Space Marines are strong enough to say no thanks from time to time. Inquisitors have learned to be more, careful, cooperative with factions that have enough strength to say no. So usually an Inquisitor will ask for Space Marines' help rather than demand it. Usually an Inquisitor will go to the Ecclesiarchy and say, I would like this, and here's my reasons why. The same Inquisitor can go to the Imperial Guard and demand 1 million men. He can go to the Adeptus Arbites and demand the release of 1 million prisoners, right? But for something like the Ecclesiarchy and for the Tech Priests of Mars, the Mechanicus, which is what we're talking about today, they have to be more circumspect. They have to be more like, well, this is a request, and if you help me with this thing, I will help you in the future, and if you don't help me with this thing, there will be consequences. So they can present their case, but it's not nearly as strong a power that they have with certain groups.
What's really cool is that the tech priesthood also has its own brand of inquisitors. They're not inquisitors, mind you, but some can actually become full-fledged inquisitors. Tech priests
Which has
can
happened.
become
It has
inquisitors.
happened, yes.
Which is actually really good for them because then they can investigate those investigating the Mars, or they tend to be very Puritan inquisitors, which is really good. But the tech priesthood also has their own brand of assassins that they send after people who are causing them trouble. The Rust Stalkers, the Infiltrators, are a type of assassin robot, Skitarii, that goes off and kills things that are messing with the AdMech.
Yep, cyber assassin, I think is the term I would use.
Yeah, cyber assassin. I like data assassin.
Well, those are
that's
the
an actual
Venus.
thing, though.
That's an
Yeah,
actual
the
temple, the
Venus.
Venus temple. Although, again, that wouldn't exist without the Mechanicus and the 3D Mars. But good point, Skitari boy. And here's one you're going to love this one, Alexis. Maybe the miracle on Mars was potentially caused by the Satan shard on Mars, the Void Dragon, or the Dragon of Mars. Perhaps the Emperor made a deal with it to create the Mechanicum in the first place, says Pumpkin Historian.
This has been my theory forever.
So talk about it. Go
off.
on.
Okay, so I am going to talk about this. This is like I need to grab like a truckload of salt and throw it at you to distract you with this, okay? But hear me out.
Okay, I'm hearing you out.
I think that all right, we have to set up a few things. The Emperor defeated a Satan on Mars potentially. There was the Dragon of Mars that the Emperor defeated. Okay? This was written when the Satan were not sharded. They were just their gods at the time. The Void Dragon was in hiding from the Necrons who were trying to kill them. This is old lore. This is pre-retcon Necrons. So if we were to make it into today's lore, that would mean that there was a very powerful shard on Mars that the Emperor fought. Now,
well, according to the legend, he says he defeated it on Terra and then took it to Mars and sealed it away before this all happened. Long time ago.
Which also might have had an impact on the techno-barbarians of Terra as well.
In the book that we're talking about, Mechanicum, the book about the treaty, this is where McNeil draws the connection between the Dragon of Mars and the Void Dragon of the Satan.
Yes.
So it's very strongly implied. Again, strongly implied, but not stated outright.
Now, I think that the Emperor brought the Void Dragon to Mars with the strict intention of creating the Mechanicum as beings that would worship the Void Dragon in exchange for all the technology that he needed ahead of time, because it would have taken them thousands of years to create the technology that he needed. He didn't have the time. He needed to defeat chaos. Then he could turn around and defeat the other enemies. Like his legions could defeat the main alien enemies, but he needed to defeat chaos, and that was his main enemy. So he made a deal with the Void Dragon, gave them the Martians so that they could worship and make the Void Dragon stronger. That's his end of the bargain. He gets stronger.
So the book suggests that he defeats the dragon on Earth, and it's the legend of Saint George and the Dragon. Like he's literally a guy on a horse, and it's literally like shaped like a dragon. And he says in the visions in the book, Mechanicus, the Mechanicum book. This is Black Library novel by Graham McNeil, so it's not necessarily core canon. But in that account, the Emperor defeats the dragon on Earth. And then it's the guy that's telling the story suggests that the Emperor puts the dragon on Mars because its dreams would influence the population of Mars and inspire all this technological insight and thus create the cult Mechanicus. So it's suggested that the Emperor is the seed or the genesis of the tech priests of Mars, the whole thing.
Yes. So I think that he gave the Void Dragon Mars so they could worship him, make the things stronger so that it can fight the Necrons like it wants to. It makes the Tech priesthood and is allied to the Imperium like he wants to, and then eventually he will kill it like he is going to. Because the Emperor always plans for things to work together and then he destroys it. Case in point, his entire history.
Thunder
Um,
Warriors.
Thunder Warriors, the Primarchs, possibly the Space Marines,
Yeah.
were all meant to be used, then
Tools.
discarded.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Though he did come to have affection for the Primarchs, which was one of the main crux of why he couldn't defeat Horus, is because he cared about him. So he had to discard that in order to defeat him. Um, so that's always been my theory, is that the Void Dragon is working with the Imperium.
So Nestor Retumber points out that the Malagra are the doctrinal police of the Mechanicum and later the Adeptus Mechanicus. He says they have a mini. Oh, shit. Okay, I'll have to go. Can we find an image of that?
I will check while you talk
Alexis?
about the next topic.
Well, I also want to point out this conversation from Morning Through Cressy. He says, members of the Mechanicus who study old papers purported to be financial documents are known as check priests. Nice. I see what you did there. Nice. Well done, sir.
That's awesome. I like that.
Nestor Tumber says, furthermore, he says, I don't think the Emperor made a pact with the demon. I think he just coerced it or conditioned it in some way.
If I'm not mistaken, this is the mini from Necromunda.
Is it? Well, let's bring it up on the screen.
Is it this? Hang on. I'm not sure if it's this mini. Let me double check. Yeah, it's this mini. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I didn't know she was Oh, that's really cool.
He's saying it's a curator from 30K.
Yeah.
The lady with the familiar is what he's talking about.
Yeah, this.
Okay, that's an Acuiter? Or Arcuiter? Interesting. And that's one of the internal police of the Mechanicum. Interesting. Go ahead.
That's just super cool because I knew there was a assassin from Necromunda that's a Mechanicus member. So it was cool to see that girl too, because I kind of forgot about her. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, Nestor Retumber's got a very strong handle on the lore. I'm really glad he's one of our fans because I love it when he brings up stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Or I hadn't thought about that, you know.
Yeah. I do always try to check to make sure and everything, and if I can find like connections and everything. It is hard with, some of the lore just contradicting itself all the time.
Well, it's been around a long time, and there's been a lot of writers, and sometimes we have to reconcile what is the truth from what is all these contradictory things. So there is a story from Horus Heresy Book 7, Inferno, which is a great book. It's almost all about the Battle of Prospero. It's one of my favorite books of the Horus Heresy books.
Can GW stop naming things Inferno? It makes it very hard to follow.
There's a canonical hook in there stating that the Emperor broke the Labyrinth of Night, which sort of suggests that he freed the dragon to get rid of the Rangdans, the Rangdan Xenocides, which is something we need to talk about because it's a big deal during the Great Crusade. Damn near wiped out a lot of the legions. It's speculative, and this is where we get the connections to this book Mechanicum by Graham McNeill, which says that the Noctis Labyrinthus, which is called the Labyrinth of Night, is where the dragon is imprisoned. So, if the Dragon of Mars, according to the novel, is captured by the Emperor and then imprisoned in the Noctis Labyrinthus, this becomes the Labyrinth of Night. The book Inferno says he broke the labyrinth during the Rangdan Xenocides. Maybe he released the dragon to fight them. We're not sure. The Rangdans were then stymied, and therefore, this is the chain of logic. The Emperor may have weaponized either the prison itself or the dragon, or a portion of the dragon, against the Rangdans, which is it's still very speculative. This is not fully stated anywhere, but it is a chain of logic that hangs together based on things that we know.
Isn't the Rangdan genocide the same
Xenocides,
event? Yeah. Xenocide, the same event that corrupted one of the Primarchs that's missing.
Possibly.
Yeah, so
Possibly.
there is the whole maybe
There's
the
theories.
Void Dragon. Maybe
Lots
the
of
Void Dragon
mysteries.
tried to take one.
We need to do an episode of the Ranked Xenocides. They're awesome. I desperately want to talk about it. But anyway, that's the connection here between the Void Dragon and like how the Emperor maybe planted it to create the Mechanicus in the very first place.
And the Rangdon.
No, I don't think so.
Well, not that the Emperor planned the Rangdon, but
No.
the connection, the like looping possible connections.
Right. Well, so if we do a Ranked Xenocide episode, we will definitely reference the Treaty of Mars and all the stuff we just talked about.
Yep.
The Treaty of Mars, by the way, this is one of the big deals too, is that the Emperor had space marines, right? We know he had those, and getting the Mechanicus on board would give him the Navy, right? Give him at least the ships. It would also give him the power armor for space marines and all their equipment for the space marines. But what he needed, in addition to that, was he needed the Titan legions and the Scutari. And the Togmata. We talk about what the Togmata is. It's basically a combined arms force from the 30K era that you'll find in the Adeptus Mechanicus episode.
And it's definitely not confusing in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Now, the treaty also states that the Mechanicus retains the right to raise armies of its own. This is part of that autonomy, right? They have the right to have their own armies that are distinct and separate.
And they forgot to say no men under arms. Dang it.
This includes the Legio Cybernetica, which is their armies of robots. Now, the robots are bound by the old Crimson Accords, which we talked about as being the older version. And the Crimson Accords are about the artificial intelligence. This is the Silica Animus.
That's why every single robot technically has a portion of human brain in it.
Well, that's the brains in the wafers, the control wafers.
Yeah.
The punch cards that they put in the robots to protect. So no one was more pissed off about this than Kelbor Hall, and we talked about Kelbor Hall a little bit, but he is the Fabricator General of Mars prior to and during the Horus Heresy. He was not the guy who signed the treaty; he was the guy after that. But he represents the failure of the treaty. He thinks that the agreement was a cave. Okay. He seethed internally about all the restrictions on technological research. And again, he saw the treaty as a way to keep the Mechanicus underneath the heel of the Imperium. So Horus comes along and offers him exactly what he wants. He says, hey, why should Mars accept limits on what it can study? Why should the Emperor decide what is forbidden? Is the Mechanicum a partner or just the guy who makes all the guns for Terra?
Are you a partner or a bitch?
Right. And does the treaty protect your sovereignty or does it conceal the erosion of your own ambitions? And this is a big deal. This is how the treaty, like undermining the treaty, is how Horus got Kelbor Hall on his side. And Kelbor Hall, to be clear, Kelbor Hall was not convinced that the Emperor was the Omnissiah. Kelbor Hall had a lot of doubts about this.
Do we have official artwork of Kelbor Hall?
He well, actually we do. He's got the guy with the 3 green lenses on his face, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a good image that isn't tiny. It's still tiny, but it's good enough.
Yeah, that's Kelbor Hall right there. So Horus basically figured out how to weaponize the contradictions in the Treaty of Mars.
That's horrifying.
That's why this treaty is actually really important to 40K. Is not only does it give you like why the Mechanicus is part of the Imperium, but it also tells you why Horus was able to lever half of it apart. Okay. So Horus was like, okay, I don't want every tech priest to become a chaos worshiper. I just need enough of Mars to conclude that what I offer is something that they want. Greater technological freedom, access to prescribed research, freedom from the old restrictions on the Dark Age of technology, the old night stuff. If you want to recreate the catastrophes of old night, I'm going to let you do that. And
here's a better image of them.
Lastly, and most importantly, Horus offered them a chance to turn the Mechanicum from a partner back into a fully sovereign technological empire, what they had been. And he appealed to their pride. Make Mars great again was his basic speech.
Yeah. The worst part is he came at them the same way Israel comes for America. It's basically like, you're free, but you're under our full control.
Now, again, we talked about the Crimson Accords. The Crimson Accords were also something that people chafed over. They were guys who wanted to recreate Abominable Intelligence and Silica Animus. And Horus was like, oh yeah, those two. I'm freeing you from the treaty and the Crimson Accords. So all of the old restrictions, all of them would be gone under him.
Also, I really like this artwork because we could see the Reaver Titans in the background. I just think those are sick.
Yeah.
And then you have like all the people that are melded together, and Cowboy Hall, who's like, you know, a skeleton kind of Rob Zombie looking tech priest. I love it.
Nestor Tumber says, is Kelber Hall a reference to HAL 9000? Possibly. If it's HAL and not Hall, I guess that's probably true. Nestor points out that the proof that the Rangdon, in addition to being biological aberrations, must have had some key technological component if the dragon was unleashed against them. Quite possibly. We'll talk about the Rangdons when we get to that.
If we want to talk the Void Dragon, he's really good with technology, but he can also just alter everything. Like, he can alter reality.
Now, it's time to talk about the coolest thing about this whole deal.
All right.
The Phoebian exception. The Phoebian tech enclaves. These guys are the exception that proves the rule, which I love. So on the Saturn's moon called Phoebe, there was these secretive technology enclaves. They were exiled from Mars before the Age of Strife. These guys were kicked out from the Red Planet. And the Emperor went to them and said, okay, I'm going to make a secret special deal with you. And he had to have done this before he went to Olympus Mons, which I think is interesting. Because it's explicitly said that Phoebe was deemed to fall outside the scope of the treaty. Phoebe was independent. And the Emperor was like, I will give you my direct protection, which makes me think that there's probably custodies stationed on Phoebe.
I would not be surprised by that in any way, shape, or form.
Because he made a whole separate deal with them.
Oh, also, this is what Cowboy Hall looked like prior to his fall to chaos.
I don't think so. I know that piece of art very well. I used it in the RPG books. I do not believe that is Cowboy Hall.
It's listed as Cowboy Hall.
On what? Lexicanum? Because that's wrong.
I'll double check it.
Let me use an old phrase. Don't you believe it? Lexicanum is often right, but not always right. And that specific piece of art I know very well because I used it in a lot of art books, or at least one or two of the 40K role-playing game books had that picture in it. All right, so anyway, going back to Phoebe.
Yeah, I would assume listed as the Fabricator General of Mars, but I can't find. I'll try to find the actual image itself then. See what else is trying to put it as.
It's fine. I want you to listen to the Phoebe and Tech Enclave stuff though, because getting your reaction to that I think is really important. I want to see what when we discuss this. So can you imagine on Phoebe, Saturn and Mars, that there's just a bunch of custodians standing around being like, yes, we will protect you because the Emperor said we would. They're probably still there. We don't know, which is kind of great. But the Emperor's deal with Phoebe was, okay, listen, I'm going to keep you safe. Mars will not retake you. And in return, you will make stuff for me, specifically the Saturnine pattern Terminator armor.
Mm-hmm.
So the Treaty of Mars is not a universal charter for all technology, despite the fact that it kind of appears that way on the surface. The Emperor was able to balance different power centers rather than giving Mars total control over technology, despite the fact that the treaty says that they kind of do get that. But he managed to work in some sort of legal sorcery to say that Phoebe's outside of the scope. Well, Phoebe's not technically part of Mars, so they're not part of this treaty.
I had my fingers crossed.
Right. You mentioned this at the very beginning of the show that both sides came to this agreement with kind of they were not entirely sincere.
Yeah.
Right. And it also shows that the Martians, despite them having such great power, they didn't control all of the stuff in the solar system even then, which is pretty cool. Now, no deal with the Emperor leads to true independence. Okay, we know that because all of the discoveries and all of the output of Phoebe were subject to imperial demand. Phoebe shows that the Emperor's real priority was never the sovereignty of Mars or even making them a full partner. It was about control of the technological balance of power.
Okay.
And we literally don't know what happened to Phoebe's fate after the Horus Heresy. We know that its technology outlived the exclusive custodianship of the Phoebians, whether or not the enclaves themselves endured, because Terminator armor Saturnine Terminator armor specifically, could be maintained and repaired only by the tech rights, and that's what they're called, tech rights, not tech priests, attached to the Legion battle fleets. And these specialists were in very short supply. They often kept damaged Saturnine suits in stasis while awaiting return to the Sol system, or to rendezvous with other Phoebian personnel in order to fully repair and maintain the suits. And by the time the Horus Heresy broke out, this dependency was already declining because the Cataphractii and Tartarus armor became a lot easier to produce and a lot easier to maintain. But the decisive thing is when the Primarch Vulcan figured it out.
Yep, he figured out the power source.
Now, do you want to talk about that aspect of it?
There's not terribly too much. He figured out how to essentially mass produce them using a alternative power source, and this power source was enough to keep their disintegrator slash plasma slash whatever weapons they had at the time, because they are often shown with this configuration, but as of current 2026, they can't take these weapons, which is interesting. Um, they can take plasma casters, they can take power fists, they can take twin disintegrators, heavy disintegrators, and they can take plasma. And their new power source powers this shielding that's within them, which is a much more powerful shield than the typical Terminator armor shield. It could take a lot more punishment, and then the armor itself is thicker, and it's more of an exosuit that goes over your armor than full Terminator armor. Even though Terminator armor, you're typically like, think of it kind of almost like Fallout armor, where you jump inside it, and yeah, your hands don't go all the way down, but you control it with basically your mind and your nervous system. This armor you don't even come close to. In fact, there's a really funny image looking this up that I
Also,
love showing.
these were some of the earliest examples of MIU, Mind Impulse Unit technology, because the weapons on top were controlled through a Mind Impulse unit.
Yep. And then there's a really funny image that I love. I love this image so much. And it is just this.
The red lines being what, yeah, it's for people who are not seeing this and listening to it. It is a very funny picture of what a Saturnine Terminator looks like, with an image of a person sort of crudely drawn inside of it, and it's not even close to fitting all the way through the body.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, it's just ads.
I am not joining Reddit. I refuse.
So if anybody ever asks you, and you're out there and you're a 40K fan and you're listening to us right now, and everybody asks you to say, hey, did the Space Marines ever use technology that was not from Mars? You can be like, yes, they did. They used stuff from Phoebe. Now, we don't know why Phoebe was exiled. The nature of their crimes is concealed. But we do know that they're not just another Forge world, and not just an ordinary sub-faction of Mars. They had, according to the book, they had long diverged from the tech canon of Mars. So they had a very distinct research tradition, technical standards, methods that Orthodox tech priests from Mars either would not understand or regard as unacceptable.
One of my favorite things is that they produce stuff probably faster, because they developed the Saturnine armor and distributed it faster than the normal tech priesthood would. Granted, at the time, the tech priests of Mars in 30K were a lot faster than they are in 40K, because in 40K they have to do a lot more rituals and a lot more nonsense when doing everything. But in 30K they could be like, okay, rapid fire those prayers, boys. We need to send out 30 Titans today.
Well, I don't know. This is pure speculation on my part. Okay, I know nothing solid about this, but I'm going to suggest that the Crimson Accords may have been put in place because of Phoebe, or maybe Phoebe was the first original sin that led to the Crimson Accords.
Yeah.
If you yourself have talked about like the possibility that a Votan might exist in Imperial space, if it existed anywhere, it might exist on Phoebe.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see that possibly, would be crazy. What if Phoebe was not a tech priesthood, but just the
Kin,
kin?
I mean, we don't do it. That would be awkward because they did send people along with allegiance. We know that they sent technicians that the tech rights.
Well, we also know that the kin existed during the heresy.
True, but okay, let's just yes, it's possible. I'll just leave it at
Yeah,
that. It is
that's
possible.
the funniest thing is that you can't say no because
I
you're like,
can't say no.
Damn it.
The tech rights as kin is kind of a funny way to think of it, though. Further preserving the moon's secrecy? Phoebe was forbidden for anyone to visit except the senior imperial household, which I presume is like Constantine Valdor and Malcador and the Emperor and like the Primarchs. Maybe Ark and Land. Anybody you would consider like senior imperial household. I guess the High Lords of Terra would count now. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Would a Stardate be in there? I think she'd be in there at first and then get removed.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, definitely not later.
Yeah. Oh, what's the guy that could kill all the Primarchs?
Basilio Foe.
Yeah, he'd probably be in there until
He
he couldn't.
said he could, and people
Yeah.
believed him, but we're not sure about that. So, their exile does not automatically mean that they were guilty of AI research or warp experimentation, but it's a very intentional mystery, and I love the idea that maybe they were related to the kin. Although, again, it's a little weird because they getting kicked out from Mars doesn't line up with the timeline for the kin.
Not really.
So I don't think so.
But
I can't say no.
Yeah, because it depends.
It depends.
Because technically the Votan kin were kicked out, but the squats weren't, according to like some other lores at the time. And we do know, thanks to the black books, the red books, that the Leagues of Votan are just directly, they're not called the Leagues of Votan at the time. But they were in there. The kin were in and are playable in Heresy's first, second, and third edition. So they do exist in the Heresy. It's really funny that they exist, and they do have technology that is comparable to the Imperium, and they do deviate quite a bit from the Imperium.
From Mars.
From Mars.
Yeah.
And they're not as strict on their rules.
So yeah, there may be a connection between the Phoebian enclaves and the kin. We're not sure.
Now that is like there's the board, and I got like 52,000 strings trying to point it out.
Yeah, Destro Sober points out those images you were showing, Kelbar, come from the old Visions art book.
Yes.
So yeah, it may in fact be accurate to say that it is Kelbar Hall. I don't think so personally. Just knowing the way this all works, I don't believe that's true. But I will say that I am not 100% sure about that. I think it's not likely. But all right, getting back to the Phoebian tech enclaves, the coolest things about these guys is that they may still be around, and they still owe all of their stuff to the Imperium, because the writ of procurement was not just a one-time delivery of armor. It required the enclaves to give all their future discoveries and advances to an envoy of the imperial household and surrender them for the emperor's consideration. If they defied this, the emperor would dissolve the pact, and Phoebe would no longer be under imperial protection. They were basically a vassal, if you want to think of it like that.
Yeah. Also, Nesta Fertumbra is pointing out that they existed. There were only playable ones were kinfolk. That is true, but we do know that the ones on Necromunda, again, grain of salt, made deals with the Imperium during the heresy.
So Phoebe is quite possibly the most innovative place for technology in the Imperium. It's Martian tech is also always considered ritualized and conservative and dogmatically standardized, right? But the Phoebians, they have freedom basically. Their divergent tradition allows them to create new military systems. I wonder if they didn't have some sort of arrangement with Call, because we know that Call and the way that all the stuff that he built is so far outside of the norm for Mars that maybe he worked something out with Phoebe.
Call being a instant betray. Actually, what if the Phoebians just became Call?
We don't know what happened to Phoebe. It
Because
seems like the Emperor wanted some sort of contingency or counterweight against Mars, and that's what Phoebe might have been. But Call emerging at the time he does, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of maybe potential connections to it.
yeah,
And he has a lot of tech that is not unlike some of the signature tech of Saturnine, or of Phoebe, I should say.
yeah. Ooh, I kind of like the idea that some of them became Call, and that's how he knows everything.
Now, we do know that the Saturnine armor was issued to the legions right after the Unification Wars. So this is a very old
I think
agreement.
I think it was built and it was distributed almost like before the just before the actual heresy broke out. I think everyone had it.
No, well, I don't. I think they got it earlier than that. I think it was right after the Unification Wars.
Because I know that they started with what? Tartaros, and then they got Cataphract, or it was the other way around. I can't remember which one of those two came first. And then at the end of the during the actual heresy, they got Indomitable Terminator armor, which was just Indominus, which was just thrown together pieces of Terminator armor to just mass produce it as quickly as possible.
Which is what is modern Terminator armor in 40K is Indominus.
And then this is a little bit of a crazier thing, but going off of just the models themselves, after the heresy, and why we don't see Saturnine armor anymore is because it's not being produced, but all of those suits became Centurion battle suits.
Well, I've got some even wilder stuff for you.
Okay.
The way that the Saturnine Terminator armor is described to work is it imposes this unusually heavy cognitive burden on the wearer. It has an intricate neural interface that worked through the black carapace of a space marine. And according to the sources, it required a measure of cybertheurgic resonance.
Yeah, definite. And that's why it worked really well with the, it works incredibly well with two factions. One, the Thousand Sons, because they're psychic, and two, the word bearers.
It's suggested that it's a latent or suppressed psychic potential that is required to unlock the full performance of the suit. That, again, that is a suggestion, an implication. It is not ever fully stated that way, but it is strongly implied to be that. And that's what I kind of love about the mystery of Phoebe, is that maybe their suits are a part of, maybe breaking the Crimson Accords wasn't AI. Maybe it was that they were using psychic stuff in their tech.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the same with the Saturnine Dreadnought. The Saturnine Dreadnought is the Dreadnought that burns out their pilots the fastest. It is the most deadly Dreadnought to its occupant because it kills them so fast. And then you have the Leviathan, which kills them fast. Then you have the Deredeo, which kills them fast. Then you have the Contemptor, which is way more stable, still drives them insane, still kills the pilot. Then you have the Castafarum, which is the safest of the dreadnoughts, but it's prone to demonic possession, which is still such a weird thing.
Well, what's fascinating about the descriptions of Saturnine armor is that it says it shares nothing in common with standard Legion equipment, completely outside what you would expect to get from Mars.
Yeah, it's why its weapons are extremely unique. We also know that disintegrators probably came from Phoebe.
Yeah, that's what we think.
Yes, because that tech first appeared alongside them.
Right. It's a classic 30K technology problem. The rarest and strongest gear is not always strategically dominant because the ability to repair it and reproduce it matters more than how it performs on the battlefield. And
Yeah.
frankly, Saturday Night Armor was great. Saturday Night Terminators were great. Saturday Night Dreadnoughts were great, but they couldn't get it to it wasn't it just kept breaking down. They didn't have enough tech rights to get it done, and the tech rights are very mysterious as well. I mean, it's all a fascinating little bit of lore that I thought
That's
would
why
be a good time to bring it out.
I mean, yeah, that's why well, there is no proof of this, but if you look at the miniatures, that it's very much the same thing. The Saturnine Terminator got gutted and turned into the Centurion armor, where it's the Space Marine is moving it and it's much slower in 40K versus the Saturnine armor in 30K, which is slightly faster, but still the slowest of the armors.
Got a couple of super chats. Let's read these out now.
Yes.
Leader 2457 says in 40K, Phoebe could be the personal tech support for the Imperial household because they still have their own tech secrets, lonesome needs to make custody armors stuff, care for the ships and the Side Titans. That would make a lot of sense.
That would,
If
oh,
the
that makes a
tech
lot of
rights,
sense.
yeah, God, that's really good. So you can imagine the vaults on Terra where the Side Titans.
Yeah, that's them.
Yeah, it's the tech rights. It's not tech priests. They're keeping it away from Mars, but they're still using people who know more about technology, the Phoebe and tech enclaves, to maintain and produce, well, to maintain and keep them operational. God, that's a really good idea, Leader.
I really like that. I really like that.
So I mean, what other technology could they be keeping up? All the custody stuff, um like the Dark Angels crazy shit, like the Exindio battle automata.
Yeah, they're probably working with the Dark Angels then.
The tech rights would probably be working with the Dark Angels for sure.
They're probably the ones that taught the Space Wolves all of their bio tech. Because the Space Wolves are randomly one of the best Space Marine armies when it comes to keeping people alive. They're the best at making synth skin. They're the best at making like reglowing limbs and things like that. They took a broken Yarick and brought him back to life. Like that's kind of just their jam. And it's very weird that they have that, being that they're supposed to be, Vikings.
Well, the Iron Priests of the Space Wolves, they according to lore, those guys do go to Mars and study. But they are considered like wildly maverick compared to all the other tech Marines.
What if they're not going to? What if it's stated that they go to Mars and they actually go to Phoebe instead?
No, because
no, they can't. They can't.
Well, I mean, no, you could make a pit stop, right? You could go to Mars and study for a number of years, and then leave Mars and go to Phoebe. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. We don't know. We don't know if the tech enclaves exist anymore, but all of this is starting to make a lot of sense. A terrifying amount of sense is starting to be made here. I kind of love it.
It also makes sense that they're the ones that work on the Sisters of Silence armor.
Yeah,
because we don't know where that's made.
Right, that's all the tech of the Sisters, the talents of the Emperor, basically would be.
Yeah,
all of the talents would maybe be under the tech rights of Phoebe. Damn.
Ooh. I can't wait until we talk about the Space Wolves and I get to talk about the fact that there's no wolves on Fenris and all the wolves are actually just failed aspirants.
That's a theory. That's a theory. But yes, Leader, great idea. Love that one. Pumpkin Historian says, so basically Phoebe is just space tech Protestants. It would be interesting if Phoebe has a completely different theology than the Mechanicum. It would be. I would like to know more. I personally would love to know more about the Phoebe.
We are clicking the button to you would like to know more.
Yes, I'm doing my part. The only good button is the death
more intensified.
Leslie says, I want Mars Wolves.
Fair enough.
Nestor September says, the Emperor probably gave Phoebe a status similar to his biotechnical division, which he had in his service even during the Unification Wars. Right.
That is true.
They created the Thunder Warriors. But he didn't have, it's unlikely that he had Phoebe during the Unification Wars. He had them after, I believe. Again, as far as what we know, the Emperor is a weird dude. He could do a lot of weird stuff.
Does the Mars maintains the Grey Knights war gear, right?
Yes, the moon of Deimos. according to Gonzalo Vicente, produces exclusively material for the Grey Knights, which, because a lot of their suits incorporate psychic tech, that's interesting too, right?
Yeah, because they
Hmm.
have the wards on their armor, they have their
Mm-hmm.
psychically activated weapons, they have the
Mm-hmm.
psychic hoods.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
They also have psychic tech marines.
Yes, they do. They do have psychic tech marines. This is all this is all part of some of that stuff. There's a story about Vulcan and the Phoebian stuff, but it's not really that important. Um, it would be important if we were to talk about
Vulcan.
Vulcan or the Phoebian tech enclaves as a separate thing. There is a link, there is a connection between the Phoebian interface technology and the Thousand Suns, like Alexis was saying earlier.
Yeah.
The systems that the Phoebians use show a lot of similarities to psi resonance devices. And this is part of the problem in reproducing Saturnine war gear outside of Phoebe. And Vulcan, who wanted this, he went to the Thousand Suns for assistance after the Edict of Nicaea. So this is Vulcan basically going around the Emperor's orders. Again, the Edict of Nicaea, which we talked about, we have a whole episode on the Council of Nicaea. It is the one order the Emperor gave that nobody wanted to follow.
Okay, this is my order to you guys. No more psychers, except for you, Space Wolves. You're totally fine. What about us? Yeah, you're good too. We're not listening. All right, whatever. I don't care. I did my part.
Fun fact: the Thousand Suns and the White Scars worked together on the prototypes that Vulcan had made. So it's a combination of 3 different legions that would eventually produce more Saturnine gear.
If you took a shot every time the White Scars were mentioned during the Horus Heresy, you would not be drunk.
So this story, the reason why this story is important, the Thousand Suns involvement points to not just being
Psychic tech.
yeah, some sort of psychically resonant technology, and Vulcan being involved, means that it was very advanced and very delicate and very, required a Primarch's mind to get involved. So Phoebian tech is not necessarily warp tech, but it occupies this kind of dangerous boundary zone because there's the cognition interface, there's the psychic resonance, and it's not clear whether you can cleanly separate one from the other.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. I'm sorry, I get lost in all this stuff, but it's fascinating.
I mean, I went on like a 20-minute rant about the Emperor's battleship having 10 Nova cannons.
Right. The reason why Phoebe's important here is because it complicates the Terra-Mars alliance. The Treaty of Olympus Mons gives the Mechanicum a monopoly over technology, but it does it because it leaves out the Phoebian tech enclaves. And it also points out that the Emperor could make exceptions to the Treaty of Olympus Mons. It says so. Mars not only does not own all of humanity's tech, it also, the Emperor is like, I can decide what you can and can't have, basically. And it also shows that the Emperor was a complete asshole when it came to autonomy, because what happened to the Phoebian tech enclaves is almost exactly what Mars was worried about. Because the Phoebian tech enclaves became like, the Emperor was like, you do what I want or else, right? That's what he literally told them. I will take away my protection.
Also, he made it so that Mars has to tell them everything,
right?
Even though Mars doesn't, but
right?
He doesn't have to reciprocate because he said anything the Imperium discovers.
And he specifically carved out an exception for Phoebe. He's like, these guys don't count.
Well,
so
it's not only that.
Yeah.
It's anything that Malkador made. So it's the entire Inquisition, because they operate under his authority at the time. Keep in mind. Also, I need to put a grain of salt on this because the Inquisition didn't exist at the time yet. But it was very much the stuff that he was making would lead to the Inquisition, would lead to the Grey Knights, would lead to certain things. But units that operated outside of the scope of the Imperium, that operated on their own will, or operated on the orders of the Emperor, who are not part of the Imperium, which does happen because the Custodians are not part of the Imperium. They are strictly the Emperor's bodyguards. They could go around and discover a whole bunch of tech or steal said tech and never report it back to Mars, which I think is a huge thing here. And I think that's actually what Kalbor Hall discovered. He was like, wait a second, this motherfucker's lying to us.
So
We've been bamboozled.
So the Treaty of Mars Olympus is why we have the Aquila. It's why the Mechanicus is part of the Imperium, but it's so much more complicated than it appears on the surface. That's one of the biggest takeaways. If you take away nothing from this episode, take away that. Nothing else. Oh my gosh. There's so many questions about the Phoebian tech enclaves that we could get into, like why were they exiled? Who were they? Do they still exist? That's all speculative because we just frankly don't know. But
oh my god, I have a theory. I have a theory that it's okay. I think it's a mix of both kin and just tech priests who don't give a shit that they're kin, and are just like, oh, okay, you have this technology. Clearly, it was made by a human, so it's fine. Because that's one of the big exceptions in the Imperium is like when you find dangerous technology. Well, it depends. Is it dangerous to our enemies and made by humans? Then it's fine. It's totally cool. That's fine. But if it's dangerous technology that was made and interferes with humanity, then it's dangerous and needs to be destroyed sometimes. So I could see them as more of like, honestly, it sounds like a whole tech priesthood that is just Belisarius Call.
Connecting it to Call is fascinating. Connecting it to the kin is fascinating. There's a lot of possibilities there. Desperate Temper's making a good point that the scientists of Terra and the enclaves of Saturn and Jupiter are also exceptions to the Mechanicum's monopoly. I'm not sure about Jupiter. Saturn is. We need to talk about Saturn sometime, or we actually need to talk about the solar system sometime.
Wasn't Jupiter under the command of Malkador?
Titan was. We know that.
Yeah, so I'd assume Titan was controlled by Malkador and thus not part of the Imperium.
But Desperate Temper brings up a question. Like, I don't know. Like the Selenar gene rights, the ones on the moon, were they part of the Treaty of Mars? Like, I don't know. Are they an exception as well? They might also be, because they're an ancient cult of texts of the gene cults of Luna. Is what they're called. So were they accepted or not? That's like a really good question. They're not known to have an exemption, but the Selenites, their expertise was absorbed into the Emperor's genetic program after the compliance of Luna, which is where we get the Luna wolves from that became the Centaurus. There's no source that I know of can tell us whether they are still autonomous or not, but it's a really good question. Benjamin says, I'm pretty sure Phoebe was exiled because they thought the color red was a stupid color. Very good. All right.
Wearing red robes on Mars. I can't even see you guys half the time. That's it. Get out.
I would. If do you have anything more you'd like to say about the Treaty of Mars before we talk about some of the fan theories about it?
So okay. The one thing that's still bugging me is that the Emperor said that, hey, we're sharing everything. But then the Emperor's demand of 25 Titans, that
was hundreds of years after the treaty, to be clear. But yes,
but that's huge.
It's a big deal because that was not part of the treaty, and he's just basically bullied them into doing it.
And those were turned into the House Sinister,
right?
Which is the Psi Titans,
possibly by the tech rights of Phoebe. Yeah,
because those. We don't know who works on them. Originally, I will say this, the Psi Titans were a creation of Mars. That is the original lore. That has since been changed, and now it is...
That same book, Inferno, the Horus Heresy Inferno, covers the Psi Titans and talks about that a little bit.
So it's interesting that he made a deal and then made demands afterwards. He basically Darth Vadered them.
He did. I have altered the deal. Pray that I do not alter it any further.
Yeah, because the second that he got everything he needed, he knew he could bully Mars into compliance no matter what, because he could destroy Mars at that point. I mean, he could fire his 10 Nova cannons at it.
Nestor Resember points out that Jupiter has its own Jovian shipyards, which are used techniques very different than those of Mars. We absolutely need to talk about the solar system at some point, because there's a lot of cool shit going on in the solar system.
Yeah, there is.
And not for nothing, but Saturn is also the pattern for the
Saturnite armor.
No. It's the pattern for the auxilia, the solar auxilia, which became the later Imperial Guard. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there as well.
I am being attacked by the one fly in Iceland. It is here, and it is annoying me.
Yeah. All right. So the biggest fan theory is one that I'm sure you're aware of, Alexis, and that is that the Emperor totally scammed Mars.
Yes. I mean, what?
That the Emperor,
how could they?
The Emperor never believed in the machine god. He never was part of their religion. He never intended to honor the treaty in its entirety, or even their theology in general. He just used their religion as the fastest way to obtain the alliance.
Are you telling me that somebody in a position of power would use religion to gain power over more people, thus manipulating them into attacking something that he doesn't like, thus making himself more powerful while dividing the people? Ross, you're talking crazy and not about the U.S. presidential election.
The Adeptus Mechanicus specifically believe that some of them believe the Emperor is the Omnissiah. Some of them believe he's merely a prophet. Some of them dispute both of these interpretations. There is a theological uncertainty within the Mechanicus about this whole deal. Like they themselves are not sure. So they tend to keep that whole thing under wraps because the ecclesiarchy would get mad, and also they don't want another schism of Mars.
Yeah.
But there is quiet conversations on every Forge World. Every Forge World in the galaxy is someone's like, hey, I'm not sure that guy actually is the Omnissiah. And the other guy's like, yeah, maybe, but what are we gonna do?
Shush your face. But the debate on whether or not the Emperor is a god does appear in other factions as well, except for the Sisterhood. Like, just flat out, the Sisterhood is like, all of them are like, yes, he's a god. Mero Sabathiel's like, nuh-uh, and she went to chaos. But there is that custodian who debates whether or not the Emperor is god or godlike. But then there's another custodian that stabbed Celestine and killed her, and then she resurrected herself right in front of him. I'm pretty sure that custodian's like, yeah, the Emperor's a god. Fucking sure. That would have killed a Space Marine, and I just stabbed you and basically broke you in half, and you got back up. Sure. But there's also the debate with the when Gilliman asked his council that included an Eldari in it. And he flat out just asked the Eldar, is the Emperor a god? And the Eldar was like, well, some of us believe that the Emperor is a god. So this debate on whether or not the Emperor is a god does appear in other factions. And I do love that. I love the idea that the Mechanicum could potentially fight themselves again.
Which they would not want.
Yeah, they would definitely not want. But this is something that Perturabo could actually pit against them. Because Perturabo could feed on their uncertainty because he is uncertainty incarnate.
He's very coded autistically.
Exactly. So he could manipulate certain Forge Worlds that are in danger, like Agrippina or Agrippina. That Forge World is suffering right now. And if he came to it as a messiah to save them and showed them the ways of the Dark Mechanicum, they might view the Dark Mechanicum as their new Omnissiah. So, I mean, but I still think the Emperor just tricked them. Like, it feels, it's good satire if he did, because it's like,
right?
Because you're tricking Christians. That's what you're doing.
Behold my miracles.
Like, that's exactly what it is.
It's also very Muad'Dib, which is, again, it goes back to the roots, the very foundation keystone of 40K, which is Doom.
Yes.
So another question that I would like to ask is whether or not the treaty still is in effect 10,000 years later, 40K. The fan theory is that yes, it is.
So, okay. It depends. Okay. So, we know that inquisitors have been encroaching on their power. That's flat out just been that's actually been
It's a
part of
source of
several
tension.
stories.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
source of tension.
Uh the AdMech want to police themselves.
Hmm.
There one fly. I'm going to kill it. The one fly in Iceland that's driving me crazy. It's
Karate
stuck
Kid taught
in.
me that you need chopsticks.
That's true. That is true. Um, I can. I think it's by interpretation now. Maybe it's a legend at this point.
Maybe. I think the treaty is still in effect. I think it just became ossified by the rededication during the changeover to the Adeptus Terra. Okay.
Yeah.
It seems clear to me that the Imperium cannot simply order the Mechanicus around. They can't. In the book Dark Imperium by
Mhm.
Guy Haley, Gilliman says outright, says, I cannot appoint my own fabricator general. So there's clearly still a great deal of autonomy. Although Ricardo Andre, one of our fans, he's probably out there listening to this saying, aha, because he has often pointed out that the Mechanicus is so deeply entwined in the Imperium that they almost are the same empire, even though they are technically separate. Okay.
Mhm.
But that change occurred after the reorganization.
Now, I do want to add a little bit of context to what you said, Ross. Gilliman was talking to the Call Inferior. The Call Inferior has a drive to become the Fabricator General of Mars and is an AI. So, was Gilliman lying to it to be like,
I don't know. It rings true to me though. Like I don't
it
think you
does.
could. This is why I feel like this is a fan theory that actually is true. That the treaty
I
is still in force.
I do think that Gilliman could back somebody to become the Fabricator General of Mars. But I think that's where his power ends. If he just flat out said, Belisarius Call is now the Fabricator General of Mars, that would start an entire war. But if he said, I suggest Belisarius Call, or I suggest, somebody that isn't actually insane. Okay, there's none of those in the Mechanicum. What that one guy from the Mechanicum video game?
Well, there's another
Fortunas.
the opposite. If we were to lore court this, the opposite side of this is that the original treaty died when they reorganized. This is called the binary succession, when the Mechanicum becomes the Adeptus Mechanicus, because the Adeptus Mechanicus is not the Mechanicum. The Adeptus Mechanicus is the loyalists that survived the schism of Mars, and they became an Adeptus. And people state, fans say, that an Imperial Adepta is not the same as an independent co-equal state. Which I think that's a good strong point there, right? It is that they are far more integrated now than they were in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So it's I think at the end of the day, my answer is it's kind of still in force. It's largely the idea of it's still in force, and I think that you would be risking a civil war if you forcibly put a new fabricated general in place against the wishes of Mars.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there.
So it's yes, but no, to use Andy's phrase, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it's still in effect, but it's definitely different, or it's applied differently than it was.
Let me go full Canadian on you. Yeah, no.
How are you doing now?
No, yeah. We do got a super chat.
Okay. Web Chef says, who has the higher GPA, Belisarius or Archenland? Is one book smart or common sense smart? Does either have an augmentation that makes them smarter? Yes. Call
Both
definitely does.
Yeah, Call definitely does. Arguably, Archenland probably does as well.
And he's also says, thanks, love you guys. We love you too, buddy. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
There's the heart. There it is.
I would say that Archenland is probably has way more common sense. Like, he seems way more down to earth. He doesn't have as many augmatics. He doesn't have 16 brains shoved up his ass. Where Belisarius Cawl is like insane from Mars. He has like 30,000 plans. He's cloned him. Sorry, he didn't clone himself. He made Cawl inferiors. They are inherently not clones run by AI.
They're totally not Animasilicus against the. They're not tech heresy because I said so. Because I found this loophole.
Yep.
Because they're all technically me. Cawl is so goddamn funny.
I would say that Belisarius Cawl is more. How to put it? One is just Archenland is flat out smarter on trivia and on knowledge of ancient technologies, and he's very good at finding Eddie as an archaeologist. Belisarius Cawl is an innovator and a rules lawyer. Belisarius Cawl also is smart enough to plan for his own death and has hidden himself in multiple areas so that if he dies, he's still alive, which is pretty cool. He has like kill switch if he dies. So which one is smarter? This kind of reeks of it's Tony Stark versus Reed Richards. Which one's smarter?
Yeah, in this case, Reed Richards is Archenland. And
Yeah.
Tony Stark is definitely Belisarius Cawl.
Yeah.
Good. That's a great analogy. I like that.
And I will still argue. I don't care what Marvel says. Reed Richards is a fucking idiot. The Council of Reeds is one of the dumbest things that they ever added to anything. And the only thing that makes the Fantastic Four interesting is Doom. And Doom should have had his own goddamn standalone movie. And this new movie is probably going to suck balls, and I'm still going to go watch it.
Wow. I really like the Fantastic Four movie. All right.
I love Doom as a character. He is my favorite villain ever because he's correct. And even the God of Knowledge knows that he's correct.
He does have a point. Nestor Retumber points out that there could be amendments to the Treaty of Mars, and those may have grown over the millennia, like the Lex Imperialis has. Now occupies several the libraries of data crystals. Yeah, you can amend a treaty, right? You absolutely can.
Yeah.
And perhaps there were amendments made. Almost certainly there were amendments made to it after the Horus Heresy. I would imagine both sides would want to amend it.
Yeah.
But we don't know what those are. But it does suggest that it is still in force if it has been amended, right?
Oh, shit. Nestor Retumber's got me on this one.
Does Belisarius have a monkey with a scorpion's tail? That says it all. Another victory for Archenland. Very good.
You know what? You got me there. The monkey always wins.
So the other another fan theory that's interesting is talking about
oh my god.
What?
Phoebe is just a bunch of Jacaros.
Oh my god, you're never gonna let that go.
it's a whole planet of Jacaros, and the Emperor's like, I have to keep my monkey safe.
All right. Let's refocus. Alexis, I need you. Come back from the fringe.
I'm good.
All right. So you earlier in this episode talked about how that Mars hoards technology. They don't actually share it all with the Imperium.
Yeah, they hoard like crazy.
Right. The fan theory is that they do this in order to maintain their independence. It's a policy of, if we ever need to rebel or escape the Imperium, we can do this because we have the technological superiority. We have the arc weapons, the void blasters, the force fields. Sorry, void shields.
They have means of throwing
black
holes. Storms and
yeah.
black holes
right.
around the galaxy. Like, they have the means to make those. But the Imperium has a piece of technology that isn't really shared with the Mechanicum, and that's,
we established that. We talked about all the stuff that they keep.
Yeah, but this one's like kind of a Space Marine exclusive weapon, which is Dragonfire.
Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. Like, that's kind of just a random thing, but whatever.
The point here is, the fan theory is that they're doing this because they don't have the numerical advantage. They want to keep a technological superiority advantage.
I agree. But I think that both are doing it. I think that they are allies as close as they can be, while simultaneously looking in each other's closets every now and then to see what weapons they have.
They just don't. The Mechanicus doesn't want to be seen as expendable because
Yeah, exactly.
so many citizens of the Imperium are. And again, the Mechanicus is horrible because they turn people into servitors, which we talked about in the Adeptus Mechanicus episode. That's
Which is a
god
horrifying
awful,
fate.
terrible. Oh Jesus! But yeah, I think that is a reasonable theory to have. It makes sense that they would want to have something on hand, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that they can have their own priorities from time to time. Because what
Okay.
you don't see is the Mechanicus, like the Mechanicus doesn't throw its weight around a lot. It does from time to time, but it generally keeps to itself. It doesn't go around like, hey, give us all your technology because we said so. You know,
Yeah,
they
they tend to send like small entourages to collect
yeah,
archaeotech and everything like that. And if they know that there is archaeotech being hoarded, that's when they send their force.
right.
And even then, they only send just enough for victory. Like they won't overextend if they don't need to.
That's true. Uh, so I have some questions for you,
I have
Alexis.
some answers for you.
Do you think that the Emperor could have conquered Mars militarily, or was diplomacy his only practical option?
I think he could have. So the Emperor's mastery over technology is such that if he came there and showed them that he could be their ruler, but came to conquer the planet, the some of the population would just stand down, which means that let's be generous and say 2/3 of Mars fights them. You have the entirety of the 10,000, followed by the Sisters of Silence. You don't have the Psi Titans specifically. You don't have any Titans. But you do have a shit ton of Voidcraft from Terra over. So they're slower, but they are there. And then you have all of the Astartes. So you have tens of million. Well, yeah, it would have to be tens of. It would have to be almost millions of Astartes at that point, because they would have like 300,000 to 400,000 Astartes to conquer them. Uh, the Emperor, if he was going to conquer, probably wouldn't have destroyed the Thunder Warriors prior. So he might have kept them as well.
Well, I mean, uh, he wanted to replace the Thunder Warriors with the Astartes for some very good reasons, including the fact that they could fight in uh, dangerous environments, like the
Yeah.
radiation scorched sands of Mars, for example.
But do you know what would be a really easy way of getting rid of the Thunder Warriors?
Send them all to Mars.
Send them all to Mars.
Get your ass to Mars.
Yeah, so
how long will you be on Mars? 2 weeks. If anybody gets that
yeah,
reference, 2 weeks.
that's a good one. That's a good one. I get that.
Get your ass to Mars. But yeah, I think
Multipass.
that's a different movie. But yeah, I think
Oh, it is? Damn
yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I'm thinking the first Total Recall.
Wait, the multipass is in Total Recall.
No, the multipass is from Fifth Element.
It is. Oh my god, I got those two movies mixed up. Both are really good. I should watch those then.
They are worth watching. Both of them are. That's true.
So I think that the Emperor's forces would have conquered Mars, but it would have been a very, very prolonged war.
Well, let me push back a little bit. Okay. Yes, the Emperor has Space Marines. Yes, he can get the Space Marines to Mars, but then he has to fight the Speranza or the other Arch Mechanicus. Then he has to fight the Titans and the Knights and the Scutari and the Tagmata and the Ordinatus with Space Marines, who are good. They're really good. But do you want to throw a bunch of Space Marines against a Titan?
I mean, you get enough missiles and las cannons, you'll take it down.
Sure.
But that it isn't just.
How about all the Titans on Mars, though?
So one of the big things, though, is that it's all of the Adeptus Custodes as well. It is the Sisters of Silence and all of their tech as well. So you do have all of the teleporting Terminators to go and deal with the Titans because they could just teleport inside it. That has happened multiple times to Titans, that somebody's teleported inside them and killed the crew and then just, left. Um, he might even have the Excendio.
But the teleportation is notoriously unreliable unless you have homers or specific tech like the Imperial Fist did.
Or your Custodian.
Or you're a custodian. Okay, I'm going to push back again, though. Yes, you can have all those things, but you have to face cyber theurgy.
Yes, but if cyber theurgy is a type of psychic power, you have the sisters.
We don't know if that's true. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And there weren't that many sisters.
Even if it's not, we do know that the sisters can still mess with them enough that they will not be able to fully commit to their abilities. Because the sisters, even to non-psychers, can give them seizures. And then we have the Assassinorum as well, the full Assassinorum.
Well, no, you
Maybe
don't.
Midas,
You don't. You wouldn't
maybe
have the
Midas
full
the
Assassin Arm.
Vanis.
No, the full Assassin Arm was not ready before the Great Crusade.
Well, you still have a few.
You have some assassins. Mostly you
You
have
also have Malkador.
Well, you have Malkador, right? Desperate Number points out that if you sent the Thunder Warriors to Mars, they might have destroyed a lot of valuable tech, right? So conquering Mars, what does that get you if you win, right?
Yeah, the problem is winning is a loss.
It's a Pyrrhic victory.
It's like, oh, I destroyed everything. Yeah, damn it.
Thousand Suns is being pointed out as the Godsalvo. Okay, I'm not saying the Emperor would not win. I'm just saying, would he win fast enough? Would it be worthwhile? Like, I don't know.
Mean, how many Nova Cannons did his first ship have?
10 Nova Cannons.
Well, no, that's the second ship.
Well, that's right. You're right. Yeah, Bucephalus, we're not sure.
Yeah, because I don't think a planet survives getting shot by 10 Nova Cannons.
All right. So, second question. I think I know the answer based on the idea of like whether this was a scam in the first place or not. But is the Treaty of Olympus Mons, is the Treaty of Mars a genuine alliance or is it an unequal bargain?
Oh,
okay. Because we're basically asking if mutual dependence equals equality.
So it is the Emperor, so it's no. Like, just flat out, it is a no.
You can't trust this guy.
Yeah, that's
profoundly flawed.
But did they both put enough on the table that it is considered equal? Is, in my opinion, a better question.
Sure.
Not trying to sound rude. I think they put enough of their information on the table that they both considered it an even trade, but they both had alternative motives to take advantage or destroy the other one if needed. But I think that it was heavily tipped in the favor of the Emperor because of how many believe that the Emperor is the Omnissiah. If the Emperor didn't come down and be all like, I am your god, worship me, and instead came as like a lonely old man, like he did to some of the Primarchs, and tried to be more subtle about it, I think the chips would be in favor of Mars. But instead, it was like, worship me, peons, and they were like, yes, daddy.
So funny fact, I think the way he did his miracles for the treaty actually reinforces the idea that he may have seeded Mars in the first place using the Dragon of Mars, the Void Dragon. Because if you are that type of being who thinks that far ahead, if you are the type of being who's strong enough to overpower Satan and then use it to create a whole civilization, then I feel like you would have that same level of hubris and pride to show up and be like, okay, I've done all the work. I've done ABC. It's time for you to worship me. Worship me. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm here. This is the part of the plan where you all fall to your knees and say, you'll do what I say.
And then they fell to their knees and she's like, yes.
Right? I mean, doesn't that feel right for the Emperor? Like, that's very in character for him.
It does. It very much does. Yeah. Oh my god, Leetu had a disintegrator and he predates Mars.
Ooh, Phoebe may be involved. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't predate Mars, but his tech doesn't come from Mars.
Right, his tech doesn't come from Mars. Yeah,
Yeah.
and and the Space Marines in general were created on Terra. So let's be very clear about
Yeah.
that. Do
Same
you
with
think
same with the Primarchs.
so? Under this treaty, and the way the treaty works, could Mars withdraw from the Imperium? Do you think? Do you think that they could actually say, "Okay, we're done. We're going to go our own way"? That's a question. I'm going to throw this up to the chat while you think about that,
Oh.
because
So the problem is that Mars and the entirety of the AdMech are not unified. So, like, while Mars may try to secede from the Imperium, you have things like Agapina who wouldn't. You have things like
let's say
all
Mars. I'll edit to say Mars. Could Mars
yeah,
succeed?
every Forge World's name just completely vanished from my mind except for Agapina and Stygius 8. And
Metallica,
Mars. Metallica. I think
Ryza.
Metallica would probably follow. Ryza probably wouldn't because they're too protected by the Imperium. I think it would cause another civil war. Do I think that they could secede? No. I don't think there's enough of them that would want the secession to begin. Oh, excuse me. That's my main concern.
Well, I mean, again, it goes back to this idea of can you dissolve a treaty, right? Can you say this treaty is no longer in force? Because if Mars can withdraw and not be considered a traitor, I think the High Lords would have to say no. I think they'd have to, regardless of the legalese. I think the Mechanicum would, sorry, I think the Imperium would literally have to be like, hell no, you can't do this because it sets up a really, really bad precedent.
I think the first thing that, even if this is brought up in any way, shape, or form, the assassins would get involved.
Oh yeah, yeah. Almost certainly, you'd see a whole bunch of tech priests just not showing up for work the next day.
Yeah, or they show up and suddenly they change their minds. What happened there? They're all like, oh, you know what? JK. Tech
Nestor
priest noises.
Nestor points out that the disintegrators are very similar to Terran Adrathic weapons. So disintegrators may be native to Terra and not necessarily Phoebian.
Yeah, that is very true. But it would make sense that the Adrathic weapons would go to Phoebian and then be turned into the disintegrator weapons.
Well, I like your theory that the Phoebian tech rights are now the ones who maintain and keep operative all the tech on Terra that's specifically outside of Mars's control, right? Stuff like disintegrators and Adrathic weapons and all the custodian gear, all the talons of the Emperor gear, would be like something that they maintain and operate. I like that a lot. All right, I'm going to bring this.
The Adrathic weapons do appear with the custodians as well as the Sisters of Silence.
They do. All right, so we have a pretty clear consensus from the lore seekers. They say no, Mars could not succeed if they wanted to. Probably would not be allowed to. And Nestor points out that Mars's industry has grown so much it couldn't survive on its own. Probably true.
Yeah.
Almost certainly true to some extent. Different Forge Worlds may have different levels of resources available to them.
We might also see that the Titans secede from Mars during this if they tried to secede.
Why? Let's talk about that. Why would the Titans specifically secede?
Because the Titans require the Imperium. Like, to get to wars, to get rescued, they require the Imperium, and then they require the AdMech to find them and repair them. But in order to get to those Titans, they need the Imperium.
Why? The Mechanicus has ships that can move Titans around. They have the Secretari that protect the Titans. They have the guys who make the Titans in the first place and repair them.
While that is true, the AdMech also know the cost of getting those Titans might not be worth the lives they're willing to sacrifice for it. But do you know it's cheaper than Skitarii? Guard.
Imperial Guard are very cheap. That's true. They're much more expendable. I'm not sure the Titans would. I think if the Titans had to choose between Mars and the Imperium, I think they would choose Mars.
They would choose Mars overall, but their pride would be undermined. and they might want more autonomy from Mars in this, because the Titans did want autonomy from Mars to begin with. They didn't want to secede from Mars, but they wanted seat on their council to be represented as what was that? What was that called when they did this? Where they marched on Terra as well.
What do you mean?
You know this. You have brain.
What is it? What are you talking about?
When the Titans wanted to be represented on the Council of Mars. I can't remember what it's called. It's not the binary secession.
No, that's different. No, that's different.
It's oh my god, I can't remember. The entire name of it just vanished from my memory.
I don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, it doesn't ring a bell with me.
It's a short story where the Titans want to be represented in the discussion. They're not represented. They're supposed to be submissive to the Mechanicum, and they argue with them, and then they walk a Titan down the street to the to where they're meeting, and they basically just go, "We want to be represented, or we'll kill everybody in this room."
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Titans in general do have some independence from the Mechanicus, but they're almost always attached to a Forge World or a Crusade or a campaign, but they're not part of the Imperial military. They're part of Mars.
Yes, I cannot remember the name of this.
Sorry, the Collegiate
That's the binary
Titanica.
secession, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the binary secession. Yeah,
it's a short story. Oh, okay. Well, then that's one I just haven't read. So, all right, cool.
Yeah, it's the binary secession story. Okay, I was correct. But well, yeah, they didn't have representation. They wanted representation, so then they threatened the higher ups, and then they got representation. It has a really cool scene with a warlord walking down a street and not killing anybody.
See, this is one of those things where I'm like, I feel like this is very fringe canon. So I don't know. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but it's interesting. It's interesting the list to think about, nevertheless. Now, here's a question I've thrown up to the chat: is who gets the better deal from the Treaty of Olympus Mons? Is it the Imperium or Mars? What do you think?
Controversial opinion. It's Mars.
Why?
Because they get a whole bunch of fodder to do the quest of knowledge with.
Well, they get to continue doing what they want to do, largely, but they also have to provide a whole lot of equipment, material, and people.
That is true.
I think it works out best for the elites of Mars, like the top level Magos, but everyone else is kind of like, well, now we have to work twice as hard. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And meanwhile, the Imperium gets all the stuff it needs, like everything that it needs. It's debatable. I'm just going to say it's debatable. I think your answer is valid. Let's put it that way. All right. Well, get your votes in. I will bring this poll to close in about 30 seconds, but I think we have covered the majority of what is the Treaty of Mars and what's all about it. Because I think what's fascinating about the treaty is like Mars's bargaining assets. You know, it's all of their things. It's the military, it's their industrial output, it's their technological knowledge, and the threat of what they could do if they refused. I think that is their biggest bargaining chip, right? But that's what that Emperor's Miracle took away, is the idea that they would refuse him.
Yeah, I could see it.
Whereas the Emperor's biggest concession was saying, okay, you guys are still a religion within a secular Imperium.
I wonder if the Emperor awoke today, if he would have maintained the treaty with with the imperial religion being, a thing.
So 50-50 is the final answer. Yes and no, the Imperium and Mars. That's very thematic, I think, for this discussion. Appreciate you guys voting in this one. So we are at that point. I need to make sure and mention to everybody that if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the grim darkness of the far future, do us a favor, hit the like button or the subscribe button. Help the algorithm spread our heresy to even more unsuspecting minds. We would appreciate it. Alexis, what are your final thoughts?
Before I do that, I want to show you.
Okay.
the book that I was thinking about, the audiobook.
Ah, there it
Because
is.
it has this Titan walk up to the Imperial Palace and just be like, "We want representation, or I'll kill all of you."
Okay. Yeah, so it's an audio book. That's another reason I haven't read
Yeah,
it. I haven't heard it. It's
it's
audio
a really
drama.
good one.
Is it
Yeah,
audio drama or a short story?
it's an audio drama,
Okay.
or yeah,
People are saying it's a short story in the chat. I don't know. It could
short
be both.
story audio dramas. That's the same thing to
Could be
me.
both. Could be both. Who knows?
Yeah.
Oh, audio drama. Okay, so that's what we're saying. It's an audio drama.
Yeah.
That's
When it
why I'm
comes
not familiar with
to
it. I don't listen to books. I'm afraid.
oh, I listen to all of my books at this point in my life.
I prefer reading much more. I read like a crazy man. I read all the time, but I read. I don't listen.
Yeah, but I'm usually sitting here building and painting things. I don't have time to like
If
look up.
if I was doing that, if I was painting, I would absolutely be a more audiobook guy. I don't know why, but I'm just
Yeah,
a visual person for the most part.
fair. When it comes to the Treaty of Mars and everything, while I do think that both parties were underhanded and both betrayed it instantaneously, I do think that because of the ravages of war that they've already faced and the damages that they've already took, they couldn't re- they couldn't not accept the alliance at this point. Also, with a godlike deity comes down to you and is just like, "Hey, miracle," it kind of makes it very difficult for you to say no to them because a literal miracle just happened in front of you, rain on Mars to prove it to everyone around you. It's
Well, indeed,
while
he is the Messiah.
yeah, it's very difficult, but do I believe that the whole thing was staged by the emperor? Absolutely. I do think that the emperor set it all up. I do think that it is a trick because the emperor is inherently just that manipulative, just that evil that he wants all humans to follow his one and only vision for the future, which does not include just allying with everybody and, fighting your way through chaos. It involves galactic genocide and non-belief and saying, "Nuh-uh, the gods don't exist until they stop existing." I do think that both of them had their own separate goals and both made contingencies to hide technology or hoard technology away from each other to use against each other in the inevitable conflict that will happen with them. The Treaty of
Wait,
Mars
wait, wait.
is
You're saying that conflict is inevitable, like some sort of civil war is gonna happen for sure?
it already has several times. It's fighting between the Mechanicum and the Imperium has happened and will continue to happen until it escalates to the point where they start unleashing their super weapons against each other. The only thing that's keeping them from killing each other is the enemy in the three enemies, within, without, and
Beyond.
beyond. The
Okay.
second that those enemies are dealt with, they will kill each other.
Interesting. Interesting. So my final thoughts on the Treaty of Mars is that this is the moment the Imperium became possible. It went from an idea to an actuality. But it also means that the Imperium will never be unified. So Terra and the Adeptus Terra, I guess, that is political unity and conquest and armies and ambition, right? It is what rules the Imperium. But in order to do that, they need Mars because Mars makes everything that ambition needs, right? The ships, the weapons, the Titans, the factories, the knowledge, the industrial capacity. Neither side can do the other's job, but together they create the Imperium of Man. But this is not, the treaty did not create a clean merger. It's a compromise between two civilizations who understand things in very fundamentally different ways. The Emperor's Imperium, the early Imperium, had the Imperial Truth and later the Imperial Creed, both of which are completely outside of what Mars believes. Mars worships the machine god. They say technology is the true religion. Terra wants human unity. Mars wants its secrets and its monopoly over technology. Sometimes those interests align. Often those interests align, I would say. But I think you're right that if the interests were no longer to align, then you would see some kind of major conflict between the two. Like if Gilliman were to try and force a new fabricator general. The Imperium needs the Mechanicus too much to conquer it. And the Mechanicum needs the Imperium's resources, its protection, the expanding frontier it cannot remain separate on its own. And that's why the Aquila, the double-headed eagle matters. It's not just a symbol. It's the epitome of the Treaty of Mars. It's Terra and Mars working together.
Mm-hmm.
The Aquila says that those powers are united. But the whole history of 40K really asks the question, were they ever really united? Are they truly the same? And the Horus Heresy proves that the contradictions in the treaty have never disappeared.
No, they've only gotten worse.
Trying to limit the dangerous knowledge, whether the Emperor is the Omnissiah or a prophet or not, none of the above, whether Mars is a partner or just a guy making stuff for the Imperium. That's what fueled the Schism of Mars, and those tensions are still there. Horus just weaponized them. So even after the Mechanicum was reforged into the Adeptus Mechanicus, the bargain still survives. Maybe amended, as Nestor Vitumber points out. And the Fabricator General is amongst the High Lords of Terra. And the Forge Worlds do have their own armies and their own cultures and their own agendas. And the Imperium cannot function without Mars. But Mars cannot stand alone. So I think the final lesson in the Treaty of Mars is that the Imperium is founded by negotiation and necessity and faith and mutual ambition. And the Emperor didn't solve this problem. He made a bargain with it. And we're still living within the people in 40K, 10,000 years later, they're still living with that bargain, the same bargain that he made.
Let's just hope that this bargain was a little bit better than the one he made with Chaos.
I mean, right? Wow. So Professor Shep points out the current books seem to be agreeing with the assessment as the new Fabricator General has that view, kind of. I'm curious, like, what that... Tell me more, Professor Shep. I'd like to know more. If you would like to know more about 40K, we do Lorebeards 40K every Wednesday, every Saturday from 2 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And we have a poll up for next Wednesday show. I will be putting up a poll for next Saturday show right after this episode airs. So you can go vote on what you want to see for us to cover.
We never introduced ourselves.
We never introduced ourselves. Oh, my God. Alexis, who are you?
Yeah, I'm Alexis. You can find me by typing in this.
Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm a person and a place and a thing at sometimes. I'm joking. I'm a Viking reenactress, a Warhammer enthusiast, and a cookie enjoyer, because I've been sneaking a cookie every now and then.
She's also a game designer and a highly skilled commission painter, I would say.
I would disagree on the highly skilled part, but I'm skilled.
They look really good to me.
Well, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Watson. I forgot to. I can't believe we forgot. We've been so good about it. I'm Ross Watson. I am a game designer and author. I wrote the majority of Warhammer 40K roleplay, several 40K video games. I was on the U.S. White Dwarf team for a couple of years. I know my 40K pretty much. I know 40K pretty well, and somewhere along the line, I decided to make it everyone's problem, which is why I'm here. All this time, says Professor Shep, I was just too scared to ask who you were.
Anyway, guys, I think that's going to do it for us. But remember, in the grim darkness of the far future,
there is only lore. Catch you later.
Thanks for watching. Love you guys. Okay.